Welcome to Sisflix, the podcast where we won't judge you for talking through the movie. Sisflix are the movies you laugh at, yearn for, and overanalyze with your girls, significant others, and now us.
We are your hosts,
Paola
and Nadhya, two sisters and designers who discuss chick flicks we hate to love,
tropes we love to hate,
and all of the aesthetic choices in between. Join us as we break down our favorite movies together.
Hey, sister.
Hey, sister.
Sisters, welcome to our penultimate installment of Bridgerton. How are you feeling a couple of days after the roller coaster that was part 2 of season 3?
Are you asking me or are you asking the listeners?
Well, I'm asking you because you can talk back to me. So.
That's a good point. I like that.
I am asking all of you, but you're going to have to get at us through our DMs and messages or
shout at us
wherever
in your car.
You're listening. If you can leave a comment, go for it.
How am I feeling a couple days after the roller coaster? Okay. Paola and I watched it together. If you guys watched our Instagram stories, we did a little teeny tiny reaction. But like, I really think that I came out of it with much more frustration than I anticipated. There were a lot of things about season 3 that really bugged me. And I have a couple of opinions as to why that may have happened that Paola and I have talked about. I think I have to give it like a good college try. Like I was telling Paola, my husband hadn't watched it, so we rewatched episodes 5 through 8. Even in watching it again, I thought I would like it more, and I found myself being more annoyed. At least the first time I watched it, it still had the novelty where I was like very excited. And then once I knew what was happening, seeing it again, I was like, this is fucking stupid. Not the entirety of the show. I'm just talking about like specific points that bothered me.
Like once you notice them, you keep noticing them. Yeah, like
exactly. I think I have to give it the real episodes 1 through 8 in a day, like the way that I watched season 2, the way that I watched season 1. I have to watch them all back to back because I have to let the story unfold for me that way.
Yeah.
I think it did a little something weird in my brain, the parts 1 and 2 release.
Yeah, it was such a disservice to separate them, honestly. Like, I understand what it did for like the fandom and like the noise online, and everybody was talking about it for a while. But it separated the story in a way that it felt like two different stories.
Yeah, absolutely it did. That's my biggest critique.
Yes. I haven't had the opportunity to go back from episode 1 through 8. It came out weekend before Father's Day, and like it was just a busy weekend. So I'm waiting for that opportunity to be able to sit down and just be able to take it in as a full series. Yeah, exactly how you said, how we consumed season 1 and how we consumed season 2. Initially, when we first watched it, you're at the edge of your seat the whole time. With that angst, when you come to the ending and the resolution, you're like, oh, okay, finally it's resolved. It ends on such a beautiful note that you feel satisfied. We had our critiques. We stayed up talking about that, but still you end the episode kind of elated for Pollen. Like as I rewatched 5 and 6 to record, just like you said, the things that we stayed up and talked about for an hour, I'm still catching it and they bother me just as much. And I'm like, oh man.
The show is not perfect, right? Like season 1 was not perfect. Season 2 was not perfect. That's fine. However, one of the like overarching things I'll say about season 3 is that I feel like it tried so hard to be symbolic and Easter eggy and clever that it gets so fucking lost in the woods. It tried to do so many little things and do the red tape on the wall of the corkboard and like, oh, this and the hair and it's shaped like a cage and this person has a key. And like, it tried to do so much of that. That you're like, the bigger picture is completely fucking lost to you. Like the bigger picture of this is the couple that we're rooting for, or even in the development of Penelope, that's so muddy and compromised by other things that at some points it feels like Penelope doesn't even have a terribly clear view of herself outside of clinging to Whistledown and that identity. The progression of the plot, I feel like a really strong edit was needed. We had like 3 subplots too many. We had like 5 or 6 characters too many.
Yeah, no. So I feel like I'm still processing it because I've only been able to rewatch it one other time and I haven't been able to rewatch it from the first episode. Overall, I love Pollen. I love their story. I would say, still with our critiques and having watched it till the end, they're still my favorite couple because to me, they feel the most relatable overall. They were sweet, they were romantic, they're the least toxic of the couples we've been able to explore. If you've been here for a while, you know I'm a friends to lovers girly. And I thrive in environments of low toxicity. So that's where I like to hang. And watching them develop their relationship. So outside of all of the noise, because most of my critiques are about the noise outside of Penelope and Colin. Outside of all the noise, watching them grow from friends to lovers, being happy in love, grappling with career choices, right? That's what we're going to call them, career choices, feeling insecure or inadequate within their career choice, within what they feel is their purpose, and how that manifests in their relationship. That's their struggle. Their struggle is, how do I balance this love that I have for you, this need that I have for you, and for you to accept me, and also the things I need to have for myself? That to me just felt so real. I feel like I deal with that on a daily basis when you build your relationships with your friends, with your romantic partners. So as far as that, I'm a big fan of their story. I wish it would have gotten more attention. I wish it would have been treated with more care as opposed to distraction. I felt like I was distracted a lot. I loved Kate and Anthony this season. They were goals this season. Season 2 isn't my favorite. Their story, although passionate, their declarations passionate, full of trauma and full of toxic masculinity and low communication. It's a lot as far as relationship goes. I would never say that Kate and Anthony are relationship goals. Now, season 3, Kate and Anthony, their relationship goals, however unrealistic it may be to turn season 1 and season 2 Anthony into season 3 Anthony, but we're going to suspend our disbelief. But Colin and Penelope, they made me laugh, kick my feet, almost cried. The mirror scene.
The mirror scene. Yep.
The mirror scene. The mirror scene. I want to say the mirror scene, it's one of the few times in the second half where I was like proud of the writing. Because the affirmations this man was giving her in front of this mirror, the verbal and physical affirmations, full melt. I mean, I have notes about the mirror scene, but overall, I think it was treated with a lot of care and delicacy. And I think it was portrayed beautifully.
Yeah, I thought it was treated well. I think it was a nice scene.
People feel that it wasn't spicy enough, though.
I think people feel that the season as a whole was not spicy enough. But that's for people who don't like to watch Benedict having a prolonged threesome.
You know, a lot of people feel like maybe the cast oversold the steaminess because a lot of what you heard a lot of time in these interviews was, oh, it's going to be one of the steamiest seasons. And if you take note, honestly, this is the season that's had the most couples canoodling at the same time. So, I mean, you had Anthony and Kate. Let's not forget Colin and his menage a trois. Our main couple had intimacy, Colin and Penelope. I mean, and then you had Benedict and Tilly. You had Tilly and Paul. You had Benedict, Tilly, and Paul. Overall, I would say this is the season where you saw most couples getting intimate. It's just not focused on one couple, which I think is what we missed. It seems like the showrunners didn't realize that we actually wanted to see more intimate scenes from Penelope and Colin specifically. We got the first kiss, which was super sweet. We got Colin's dream, which was a fantasy. We got the carriage scene, which was hot. And then we got their first time, which is what we got in episode 5. And then we don't see them really get intimate again because they're in so much turmoil throughout their engagement and wedding. Then they gave us like a 20-second clip at the very end of episode 8. And I think that they really overlooked how much the fans needed to see Colin and Penelope resolved maybe earlier so that we can see them enjoy their relationship to be able to feel more satisfied with Colin and Penelope.
I'm just thinking like the formula is not different from the previous 2 seasons. Like you spend the first 3 or 4 episodes building the connection between the romantic leads. It comes to some type of head in episode 5 and 6. Between episode 6 and 7, something bad has happened. They're thrown into limbo. Halfway through episode 8 is when they start to even consider reconciling. And then at the very end of episode 8 is when they're good. Like, that's what happened in season 1 and in season 2.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be like surprising. It's not terribly different. I feel like this season was jam-packed with other shit.
Well, and that's what it is. It was so distracting from the main storyline.
And you know what? This could be Taylor Swift level Easter eggs, right? Like, this shit could come back in season 4. Shit could come back in season 5. And then it's like, oh my God. And then you could view season 3 as part of the whole and be like, oh, I totally get it. Like, they laid all of this groundwork or whatever. But as of right now, it's like, the fuck am I watching? Some of these plot lines or stories or whatever don't feel meaningful. It feels like they're going to be dropped into nothing and we're going to forget what they were. Whereas season 1 and 2 had their share of random outside plot lines that ended up curving back into the main story. Like Lord Featherington is a gambler. What the fuck does that matter to me until you get to the end of episode 8, first season? That guy gets fucking murdered, leaves his family completely penniless. And then you're like, oh fuck. Now this is important again, that this one little thing, this one side character was doing funneled out into this way bigger deal. I always think back, like when I think on my favorite Bridgerton subplots, Lord Featherington's gambling is one of my favorites. That is like alive. Like that's like crackling with energy.
Absolutely.
Season 3 didn't do that for me. Again, I haven't watched it episodes 1 through 8 all the way through, and I might change my mind. I don't think I will, but I might. It doesn't do that for me.
You know, there was definitely a lot of time dedicated to plot points that ultimately did not lead anywhere. Like from part 1, maybe continued a little bit into part 2 and still didn't lead anywhere. The storyline behind the Marndrich bar went nowhere, did not teach us anything. Episode 6, he just decides, okay, I'm going to sell. All the time spent on convincing us that Francesca's love was like a beautiful, quiet kind of love. They really wanted to sell us on that. For them to completely dismantle it in the last 10 minutes of the show. All the time spent on redeeming Cressida just for her to turn around and be the exact same person. And I get that that was an important plot point, but we would have understood that villains are typically products of their environments with a lot less screen time. Eloise learned nothing from this friendship. It just felt like, oh, that was a waste of time. Like the way she just dropped Cressida and then back friends with Penelope, and just by the end of episode 5, Eloise talked to Cressida one more time. It was contentious and that was it. They weren't friends again for the second half of the season. They dragged some of these storylines. I understand why they were necessary. Maybe conclude them sooner so that when we're trying to resolve our main love story, we're not resolving all of these stories at the same time. So like you were saying before, where there's this formula that's followed, right? Everything's contrived right up until episode 7 and 8. And right at the end, like that second half of episode 8, you start seeing everything take a turn and okay, everything starts coming together. But the difference of this season compared to other seasons is you have a heftier plot with the addition of Lady Whistledown. Mm-hmm. I went back and I'm like, okay, when does the couple resolve in season 2 and season 3? Because I just felt like I didn't get that for Colin and Penelope. It starts at around 20 minutes. And it starts with a dance. At the Hastings Ball, at the end of episode 1, the Duke and Daphne enter into their dance right before it starts to rain. That starts to happen at around 20 minutes. Anthony and Kate at the Featherington Ball, where she enters and they dance to Wrecking Ball. That starts right about around 20 minutes. Both of these dances are dedicated to them, where they're the main character in this dance and we're following them through most of the dance. And then, yes, you do catch up with some characters here and there, but this is where that turn starts to take. For Penelope and Colin's story, we enter the Finch Dankworth Ball at around 20 minutes when they start unveiling Lady Whistledown. And they spend 10 minutes of those 20 minutes unveiling Lady Whistledown. Colin and Penelope did not interact in starting their reconciliation till about 12 minutes before the end of the episode. When they did go out to dance, he tells her, you know, how lucky I am to stand by you and get just a little bit of your light. I will be a fulfilled man if my purpose is to love a woman as great as you. Goodness me, what a fucking great line. They go out to dance. They share that dance with the rest of the cast. Lady Violet's out there starting to get her garden sprinkled while she's dancing with Lord Anderson. We touch base with Eloise and Francesca. They don't get the dance to themselves. They were a side character in the last dance of their own season. And then after a few bombs that dropped as this dance is going on, when we're introduced to new characters that are going to lead us into season 4, we get a very brief 20-second clip of them in bed. And then we don't see them again until the epilogue, when we see them as an ensemble with the family. So my point is, you don't get the satisfaction to really enjoy a passionate reconnection between them. When the Duke and Daphne reconnected after their ball, they have a love scene. And then you get an epilogue and you see the result of that reconnecting. Anthony and Kate, he has his declaration of love. They love each other. They decide to stick together. And then we get a scene of them passionately reconnecting. And then in the epilogue, it's them making out in front of their family right before playing Pall Mall. So that's missing in season 3. That last resolution between the main couple, that last connection between the main couple is missing from season 3. We just got it in words. Then you see everyone together again as an ensemble. We love the ensemble, but I think we wanted a bit more time with Colin and Penelope as a couple together, reconnecting after they reconcile. Entering episode 5 even, you're like, oh my God, this is nerve-wracking. But we did get that mirror scene though. You know, I've heard some discourse online that people felt it wasn't spicy enough. And I'm like, what more did you want? What else did you want to see for it to be spicy enough for you? Because like, we got the girls out. We got a cute little booty shot. This man was pumping away for a minute. He adjusted for leverage. She was groping and grabbing his ass under the silks. How many times did they have to pull up that silk sheet? Because that shit was holding on for dear life. Did you see the poor vein on this man's face? It was tired. Any longer, any more, you're watching soft porn. I don't understand. And I mean, this show isn't meant to be like Outlander levels. I watched Outlander. I'm an Outlander girly. If you know, you know. This show isn't meant to be an Outlander level. There's more delicacy in how they portray these scenes. I think it was incredibly intimate and enough to show you the development of the relationship. What I do think they might have missed the mark on was the opportunities for some close-ups. Like close-ups on skin, close-up on hands and legs. I mean, it prolongs the moment for the viewers without exploiting the actors too much more. And especially when you're showcasing the beauty of a curvy woman, you know, like show a soft skin and beautiful thick legs and thighs. I feel like they hit it more than they showcased it. That was frustrating for me. Nicola has these amazing legs. I'm like, let's see the legs. Let's see, you know, let's sensualize this curvy body. Anyway, overall, the editing for me was the most frustrating part of the season, period. Because I kept finding these missed opportunities. I kept hearing myself say, oh, they should have lingered on that a little bit more. Or why are they showing more of that? Like the editing, I feel, was off and a little bit all over the place and inconsistent.
Yeah, that's something that we've mentioned, right? Like you're mentioning editing in terms of like literally cutting from scene to scene. I agree with you on that.
No, and storytelling.
And storytelling. Like this
Right.
needed such a strong paring down. It needed a second. That's the other thing too. It's like, I don't want to say like it needed an edit as if these people aren't fucking professionals who know how to do their job and like do this shit all day, bread and butter. No way. I mean, the show has been obviously incredibly successful thus far. They don't need advice from weird girls from New Jersey, but I think this season bit off a lot. Didn't chew it up right.
Yeah, I like that term. And I feel like maybe don't apply the same exact formula. It's a different story. I feel like you're exploring.
I think they tried not to, and in trying not to, somehow landed in the same formula in a way that felt unsatisfactory. Like they tried to take the focus off of that structure by having so many other fucking things happening. It was so much like, and something that I've seen online too is a lot of people being like, everybody's being so stupid. This is an ensemble cast. Like, they're not the only two characters in the show. Like, you have to understand that they need to showcase other storylines or whatever. And it's like, dog, no one is saying fuck the other storylines. I like the Mondriches. I like Kate and Anthony. I like the tension between Penelope and Eloise. I like Violet having a fucking garden again. Like, all of that stuff, I'm like, yeah, I love that type of shit. But to what end? Because I just named, okay, my personal favorite side plots. I didn't name five more that there are. I didn't name Cressida, and then the shit with the Featherington sisters, and then Lady Featherington and Penelope, and then this character and this character, blah, 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 blah. Already now it's muddy. It's already too many things. And so when you mentioned the editing of like the cutting scene from scene, lingering, that's the perfect word. They don't linger on anything, and that's why nothing sinks in. Like, you don't have these moments, these like prolonged looks, focusing on the hands, the widening of an eye, a gasp, a neck stretch, or whatever.
You don't have the time for it
because you've got too much shit.
Because you got too much shit going on. Exactly.
I think of season 1, and we've talked through season 1 already. Like, season 1 was not my favorite after I saw season 2. That doesn't mean I didn't enjoy it. But season 1 had that in spades. Had a lot of the eyes grow wide because you're staring at the person that you love. A slow, deep breath. A gasp. Daphne and the Duke, they had intimate moments before the intimacy got like a little bit gratuitous. They were just fucking all the time. They had these intimate moments where it was these slower physical reactions to each other. And I think that creates a buildup that is just more satisfying to the viewer. You could argue, and I have seen argued, oh, but it's been 2 seasons of that. It's been 2 seasons of Penelope staring down Colin and gasping and breathing and her eyes. Like, okay, sure.
All right, flip it.
Right. It hasn't been 2 seasons of fucking Colin doing that shit. And you know what I needed him to do? Say it with me, ladies. Suffer. I needed him to suffer and yearn, like for Penelope, like before they got together.
Even in mentioning Colin, I think they relied a lot on their acting. I mean, which was great. I think they communicated everything they needed to communicate. Colin's very good with subtlety. Penelope's very good with communicating with her eyes and her face. And I think they're the reason why you get that and you're able to enjoy those moments because they didn't do it in the editing.
And even like everything with Benedict, even that feels like it's nothing, right? Like, oh, we learned Benedict is bi or pan, right? Probably more likely pan. Like, he doesn't really just have like a gender preference, and that's cool. That was a long time coming, right? We've known Benedict was in there.
Yeah, no. Since season 1, we've been expecting them to confirm a queer plot for Benedict for sure. I think we read Benedict as queer since the first season. And it was satisfying to finally see that. I kind of wish we would have got it in season 2 because we didn't see any queer representation in season 2.
Yeah. And we lost the thread on the 2 queer characters we met in season 1. We lost the thread on...
That completely got lost, right?
Henry Granville and his wife. Henry
Correct.
Granville, gay, and his wife, who's at least bi, if not also gay. And then you're like, well, what the fuck? Like, these people just disappeared away from the town?
They disappeared, right. And so... to not get any queer representation in season 2 and then to just add to more plot in season 3, I would have loved to see that in season 2.
Adding plot and not reusing characters. Benedict could have had this experience with the Granvilles, and then you feel
true. And then you
like
feel like, oh, this
back.
Is somebody that you've already created a personal relationship with. How much wouldn't I have loved to see the prince from season 1 reappear in season 2 and help out Edwina? Or, you know, a matter of fact, I was hoping that Zeppelin would come back and
for
help
Cressida.
They bring in these new characters and they throw them away. And that becomes frustrating because you're introducing new people all the time. But also it helps bring in the dynamic of the Bridgerton world. You're able to bring in more representation by bringing in new characters. Which brings me to Michaela. Because the choice to bring in a brand new character in the last 10 minutes of episode 8 was a wild and crazy choice. And I understand they did it because they wanted the shock value.
And to set up the future of Francesca's story. Yeah.
Right. So if you're not a Bridgerton book reader, you might not know that John is not necessarily endgame for Francesca. She does have a second love story. In her book, she meets John's cousin, Michael Sterling, And after a course of events and time passes, Michael and Francesca form an attachment. I have not read Francesca's book. I plan to. It's on the TBR for the summer. Apparently, their love story is like super passionate and a Bridgerton fan favorite, right? There's a earldom in question, and there's a plot surrounding wanting to create a family and struggling with infertility. My understanding of this Michael character from the book is that he's an incredible rake, a womanizer, probably equipped with a healthy amount of toxic masculinity, virility, passion. And Shondaland has made the decision to swap genders for Michael. And we are introduced to Michaela, John's cousin, at the end of episode 8. Giving, in my opinion, Bridgerton a very much needed LGBTQ storyline. But, my guy, the homophobia and sexism that has ensued from this decision online is jarring. I would never have expected the type of negative feedback that this has brought on the Bridgerton fandom. And I'm surprised because I joined the Bridgerton fandom with the Netflix show. And I felt as though the Bridgerton fandom were an inclusive, open-minded bunch because I entered into this world with characters of multiple races, multiple backstories. And that's one of the reasons I fell in love with the show. When I saw this backlash, I'm like, oh shit, isn't that why we're here? Isn't that why we're making this show, to bring inclusion? But unsurprisingly, most of that backlash is coming from a very specific demographic of women.
A specific demographic of women? Don't look at me. I know I'm pale. Don't look at me. It ain't me.
I'm not. You don't fit the demographic. You don't fit the demographic I'm talking about. I'm very aware that we live in a heteronormative patriarchal society. So this isn't uncommon. So I'm sure that people who are uncomfortable with this narrative probably have a lot of people rallying with them. I just want to pose some questions. It's important to ask yourself, what's the real discomfort behind a woman as a romantic lead for this particular story?
I'm going to cut in for a second because I find that a lot of romance readers who see an adaptation that doesn't exactly fit what was exactly in their brains feel this way. It's that I'm a straight woman. She's a straight woman. That guy's hot. I can pretend that I am insert straight woman here with hot guy. Like, I don't want to pretend that I'm insert straight woman here with a gay woman. That's not fun for me. And it's like, the world is also not just you, my guy. Like, the world is not only white, it's not only heterosexual, it's not only cisgendered, and it's not only female or feminine coded. There's such a spectrum of life and experience for everyone, and everyone deserves to see themselves on screen. They deserve to see their stories given respect. They deserve to feel desired and valued, and like people see them and want them if that's something that they want. Because you know what? There are asexual people and aromantic people who aren't into that shit. That is also great.
Absolutely.
A spectrum of experiences all across the board.
And so then my second question to that person is, do you recognize that you lack the empathy to be able to enjoy another love story that may not directly reflect you or the people around you? Because that's a particular brand of empathy that queer people and people of color are especially keen to.
You have to develop it early.
What are you going to watch? What are you going to watch? To develop that shit as soon as you're introduced to TV. You have to develop that shit as soon as you're watching Barney. Because you're not going to see yourself. So therefore, you need to appreciate others' stories or be able to insert yourself in stories whether you see yourself or not. And shit like this is why it's been such an uphill battle to get more representation in visual media, specifically in the romance genre. Because we as an audience ask for diverse representation of bodies, diverse representation of race, diverse representation of sexuality and gender. But then when the time comes, viewers criticize and complain because they can't appreciate a love story unless they fit their specific fantasy or physical preference in a love interest.
And these are so many of the same people that gave like incredibly serious fucks about a mermaid not being white. You know, fictional things not being white. You get what I'm saying? So it's like, this is not like a statement that's just coming for white people or coming for white women, because it's not. I mean, I'm white, right? For all intents and purposes. So like, no, I'm not trying to say like, oh, all white women are like so boohoo about this story. No, because I'm a cisgendered woman in a heterosexual relationship. Yeah, I totally get reading romance, watching rom-coms, and being like, I am girl and boy is for me. Like, I totally get that. It's part of the fun, right? Like, you're doing it because it's a world of pretend. I also read a shit ton of queer stories. Those aren't me. They're not for me. I can appreciate them because it's something that I can view the emotion, the connection, the feelings, and be like, this is what I love. This is what I like. I like the essences interacting. I don't need it to be just for me. I don't need it to be just about me. And oftentimes, I don't think this type of backlash is born out of like malice. I think it's born out of ignorance and people who have never had to appreciate culture that doesn't center them. Maybe some of these people who find themselves very opposed to Michaela Sterling will be inspired to kind of like take a step back and be like, why is this bothering me so much?
Which is why I'm posing the question.
Yeah, exactly. But even like, were there people in season... I'm sure there were. I mean, again, I wasn't part of the Bridgerton fandom either, right? Like prior to season 1, because I started watching the show and then I was like, oh, there are books. But I'm sure that there were people who were like, but the Duke in the book is described as white with blue eyes and blonde hair. Why is he not like that on the show? And it's like, oh, you know how when things are fake, you know how when things are fiction and you can do whatever the fuck you want? Like, oh, the mermaids are white. What? In the cartoon?
You know what? And I'm glad you said that because there's this little thought that itches my brain.
I know exactly what you're going to say. Go.
And it's, are you only able to root for a romantic lead of a different race or sex if you're able to fetishize them? Because all we heard was how, like the Duke, the Duke.
Oh, the Duke.
Okay. But now we're looking at Michaela and you can't take Michaela because she's a woman.
Yeah, with Michaela, it's like, but I don't want to sleep with Michaela.
I wouldn't want to sleep with Michaela. That's
Susan, that's great.
That's fine.
There are so many other people for you to sleep with. You don't have to sleep with Michaela. Like, you got what I'm saying? Like,
no, truly and honestly, we should be able to learn from, enjoy romantic stories, love stories that do not censor us.
People are so embarrassing.
That have to do with other people's experiences, and we can be happy for those people's experiences.
Oh, I love a queer story. I love a queer story. Am I a queer woman? No. I fucking love a queer story. Why? For who, Nadja? For them. It's so cool. For the people in the story.
Exactly. And you know what? This also censors with physicalities too. Like, we as a fandom love Nicola, but there's haters out there talking about, oh, this is such an unrealistic story because as a curvy girl, she would never get that guy. Like, who the fuck? Excuse me? So the curvy bitches just ain't married out here? So my husband does not exist. This man did not pick me because I got hips, titties, and ass. Like, he did it. He was like, nope.
No, it's a lie.
Too much ass, too much thighs.
You thought he picked you. You just moved in and didn't leave. Like, what?
Like... But that type of commentary is coming from somebody who is pushing their preferences onto other people.
Yeah.
Shut the fuck up. This is not about
Paola,
you.
But it's like, and this is what I mean. Like, it isn't just the show.
Right. No, it's people. Yeah. I mean, and the last thing I'll say about this is masculinity and femininity are socially constructed characteristics. Okay? A woman can display masculinity just like a man can display femininity. So to argue that because Michaela is a woman, she's not going to be able to display a masculine, rakish, passionate tendencies, that's sexist.
It's bullshit.
So our opinion, I'm going to speak for Nadja because I know she feels the same way, is a woman can bring a powerful, dominating, and passionate energy to a love story like Francesca's. Yes, a Scottish earldom can be passed down to a woman. Just got to do a Google search. As the rules in Scotland are different from England's. And the narrative that exists around the infertility follows the struggle of same-gender couples that want children as well. So nobody's destroying your story. It's not going to mess up Francesca's narrative. It can all stay right there because they're still going to live a life. They're still going to fall in love. It's going to be passionate. you can still have that story regardless of the gender that's portraying it.
Yeah, like, I'll tell y'all, when Michaela came on the screen, or for me, I know Paola ended up, that was actually spoiled for you, which is a bummer. But for me, that was not spoiled.
I knew about it because I logged onto Instagram earlier that day.
Nah, that was a mistake on your part.
Shouldn't have fucking done that.
When I saw it, I was like, oh! Like, I was so excited because the shit's fresh. It's new. It's fiction. Oh my God.
Listen. Michaela came up on this screen with this energy, fucking beautiful. I was like, yes, bitch. The only thing that I have a qualm with is that there was so much buildup to appreciate John and Francesca's love story.
I don't think we're meant to appreciate it less. Like, you know what I mean? I don't think her having that spark invalidates the feelings that she has for John.
A little bit for me. If I saw my man that I just courted for however many weeks look over and be fucking starstruck by some beautiful bitch, I'd be like, oh, what the fuck was that? So I guess this is not enough. That seems a lot more interesting to you. Okay, why don't you go do that then?
Jesus.
The way this woman lost her speech, she was stunned.
I loved it.
Stunned.
I loved it.
No, I was like, oh shit, let's go.
Yeah, I was absolutely here for it.
I don't know how that's going to take place in season 4 though. I want to see Francesca and John still have their relationship and their marriage. I feel like it's an important part of their story from the book. I guess what I'm saying, I'm not sure at what point of their story that's going to happen. Is it going to happen in season 4? Is it going to happen in season 5 if Bridgerton's renewed? We should hear soon if it will be renewed for season 5. Now, with all that said, Nadja and I were up till 2:30 in the morning watching these last 4 episodes of Bridgerton. So that can't be negated. It was stressful, too stressful, more stressful than I would have liked. But it did keep us at the edge of our seat, waiting to see what's the next thing that's going to happen. So take that with everything else that we're critiquing. Obviously, you guys know when we critique these shows, it's out of a place of love. I love Bridgerton. I critique it because I love Bridgerton. I love Pollen as a couple, and we're going to critique the story because we love Pollen as a couple, and we just want it to be better. That's all. But I feel like my feelings about the show are so different going from part 1 to part 2. So let's officially get into this recap. Bridgerton season 3, part 2. I'm excited to stop calling it part 1 and part 2. I want to just watch it as one. Both episodes 5 and 6 were directed by Billy Woodruff and written by Asia Squire and Annabelle Hood, respectively. So themes for this second half of the season that we see brought up that honestly, I feel weren't part of the first half of the season. They started to come up in this second half. And maybe I might feel different once I see the whole thing through, but I feel like these stood out to me watching episodes 5 through 8. Gratitude and not taking things for granted. Feeling trapped and encaged. I think they did a good job of continuing this theme through the show. We see this continue through Penelope and Cressida and how they both use Lady Whistledown to try to escape their situation. Identity. Another theme that carries through the whole 8 episodes. But I think in this second half, it morphs into identity within a relationship. Identity of how you fit into your own life and into somebody else's life and the insecurities that come with that, right? We see that in Colin and Penelope's story a lot, where obviously she's struggling between 2 separate identities and what that means for her and what that means for the man that she loves. They mean different things for each of them. And for Colin, something that we've seen with him from season 1 is he has a bit of a hero complex. This is how he finds his value in pleasing those around him and helping those around him. And he struggles to find his footing when he enters a relationship where his partner becomes pretty independent And he starts to realize that she doesn't really need him. She more so wants him. And how those can be two different feelings for somebody who's dependent on feeling like they're the hero. Any other themes you noticed that I might have missed?
I mean, I think this goes with identity, like self-actualization.
Right. Yeah.
Achieving the self, respecting the self.
100%. Maybe finding your place as well, right? I think Benedict is struggling with that, and Eloise is struggling with that too. Like, where do they fit in? A line that Eloise says is like, everybody keeps pairing off. So they feel like they're being left behind. So how do they fit in? How do they continue to move forward? So episode 5 starts named TikTok. TikTok bitch. We enter this episode elated. We were just bumping to Pitbull, Colin Two Fingers Bridgerton, Mr. Fingerton, if you will. Just gave Penelope her first sexual experience. And he has popped the question, for God's sakes, Penelope Featherington, are you going to marry me or not? Because you gave me consent to compromise you. And we assume that she says yes because she is out of the carriage and on her way into the Bridgerton house with Colin hand in hand. We, as the audience, learn how this news is shared in retrospect through Penelope's perspective as she writes about it as Whistledown. And our elatedness for Penelope and Colin quickly turns into anxiety as we realize how nervous she is. We know her relationship with the Bridgerton house has shifted this season. It's no longer a place where she feels comfort. The camera is rocking back and forth. The sound around her is muffled. We're supposed to get the sense that her world is turning upside down or like she's a ship sailing into a storm. As a viewer, you're like, fuck, this was supposed to be happy. But as they walk into the drawing room and Colin announces to the room that they're engaged, even though it's muffled, we see the sweetest onslaught of family hugs ensue, starting from Hyacinth all the way through Lady Bridgerton. And this is like the sweetest moment. Penelope has never really received this type of affection in her home. Not participating in any display of affection or even the slightest joy is Eloise, who just stands staring at them before excusing herself. And this is the moment when I realized, like, Eloise wasn't just going to let them be happy.
I guess in her mind, why would she? She feels blindsided. She feels used because everything's about Eloise. The world revolves around her.
The world revolves around her. Penelope goes after her to try to talk to her. Eloise goes straight into berating her about being Lady Whistledown and how Colin is going to find out. And this I respect, right? You get like this protectiveness of Colin, right? Like, this is going to hurt him and you haven't been honest with him. As a sister, I totally understand that. But she even has the audacity to ask her, since when have you had feelings for him? Since when has this been happening? Like, you didn't know her and your brother have been spending all of this time together, first of all. Second of all, more confirmation that she has not paid attention to Penelope's feelings ever.
Even Cressida picked up on Penelope liking Colin. People picked up on that in season 2.
Marina picked up on it in season 1.
Mm-hmm.
Just proving, again, that Eloise doesn't really see the world outside of herself just yet. And I feel like I thought I saw some growth with her friendship with Cressida. And that into this second half,
it disappears. It's honestly like you're back at the end of season 2 with how she's acting in part 2 of season 3.
Truly. And Penelope's apologetic the whole time. She's just like, I'm going to try my best. I'm going to tell him as soon as I can. Like, I know she just wants Eloise to be okay with her. And she's finally like, I'm going to just give me time. Eloise turns around and leaves her in the hall. Colin comes out and obliviously and sweetly reassures her that everything will be okay. And he's so optimistic at this point. Like, you see the optimism in his face and you're just like, oh man, this is going to be a shit show. And your heart is already breaking for them when you cut back to Penelope in tears, writing about her engagement to Colin as Lady Whistledown. And we get the Bridgerton title card with the Bridgerton tree shaking back and forth by an incoming storm. What the fuck? They could not give us happy Colin and Penelope for 1 second. And from this point on, every single moment between them through the last episode is tinged with the angst of Lady Whistledown overshadowing them. For me, I just feel like anytime I see Colin, I just feel worse for him. Because he's super sweet and he's trying to be supportive and he's there for her. He's the best fiance we've seen so far. Also, she's writing this the night of her engagement when she's home. It releases the next morning. How did nobody clock that Lady Whistledown dropped that issue the following morning, and the only ones who knew about it were Colin and Penelope and the Bridgerton family? Nobody was like, wait, how did Lady Whistledown know if we were the only ones who knew in this room last night? Which one of you bitches is Lady Whistledown?
And so the next morning, everyone receives the news of the engagement. Benedict receives it first. Where does he receive it? Lady Tilly's bedroom, baby, because they were fucking. She just happens to get the new Lady Whistledown delivered to her nightstand by one of her servants. The next people to get the news, because they did not hear the news from Penelope herself, which is wild to me and was wild to me when I was watching it, are the Featheringtons. The fact that they read it in a gossip sheet rather than hearing it from their... That's so crazy. So the Featheringtons, Portia, the two Featherington husbands, because I'm not going to refer to them by their last names, and Philippa and Prudence are sitting in the drawing room. They're reading Whistledown out loud to each other. And that's when they learn Penelope and Colin are fucking engaged. As they're absolutely in shock about this news, Penelope's just standing outside the door listening to them.
Mm-hmm. She's like, yep.
Enjoying the shit.
Maybe she doesn't want to be delivering that news herself. I feel that she knows she's just going to get questioned and criticized.
It's like they wouldn't believe her, maybe. Like they would mock her.
If it doesn't come from Whistledown, they wouldn't have believed her.
Yeah. Next we see Cantony is back, baby. Over by the Bridgerton house, Kate and Antony are arriving from their extended honeymoon, and Kate is fucking pregnant. And Antony is so happy, and he literally tries to shout it through the rooftop of their carriage. And he's so excited to tell his family. It's precious. It's so precious.
He's a gem this season. I'm going to keep saying it.
These are the Jonathan Baileyisms that like make it through to Antony now that he's allowed to be goofy, now that he's allowed to be a silly like certified lover boy. As they walk into the Bridgerton home, greet everybody, before they can share their news, Hyacinth bursts out with the news of Colin's engagement to Penelope. Antony is super caught by surprise, drops everything, and he's like, all right, the brothers need to have a little brother meeting. Not with Gregory, because Gregory's a baby.
He's the family pet.
The three elder Bridgerton brothers, as you may know them, Antony, Benedict, Colin, go into like Antony's study. Antony and Benedict are sitting on one side of the table and Colin is sitting on the other, and they're both basically like, give us the tea. Tell us what the fuck happened. Did you do this? Did you mess it up? Did you compromise her? And I mean, it's like, yeah, but also like, no.
It was a team effort.
It was, consent's important.
I love this scene between the brothers.
I do too. I very much. It's a very sweet scene. It's one of the most candid, unguarded interactions we get between the three of them. And that candor and vulnerability comes from the fact that Antony's not a fucking dick anymore. Like,
truly, right? Is that what it is? And there's even more scenes later on where you have Mondrich and you have Sterling and they're all together. And it's like these men, they're so honest and open with each other. I really loved seeing that. There was like a little bit of positive masculinity.
Mm-hmm. I mean, this scene is such a huge plus for me. It was such a sweet scene. It was a little bit of levity that we kind of needed, I think, especially after that scene between Penelope and Eloise. As Colin shares his feelings for Penelope being this kind of slow burn in his heart. Like, he wasn't just struck by lightning, but he's been developing these feelings over probably years and he didn't know it. Benedict, like, sits back in his chair and sighs.
He sighs. It's so cute.
It's so cute.
He's just like, oh.
Benedict is me when I find out that actors are friends in real life.
Aw, I just love it when they're friends.
Literally, Paola and my husband, every single time we're watching something together and I like muse out loud, like, oh, I wonder if they're friends in real life. Fucking both of them, I think they must have talked about it, will go, I just love it when people are friends. You Fucking assholes.
I mean, same.
I love when people are friends.
This cast overall, it's top tier with them.
It
They're
is.
all hilarious together.
Their chemistry is so
Interviews
good.
all around.
So Benedict sighs, grins. He is like over the moon for Colin. It's so sweet. And he kind of clarifies to his brothers, Colin, as he's talking about Penelope, he probably has always felt something for her beyond friendship and just, hadn't realized it sooner. And, this is a really great moment of confirmation for Pollen fans who have been following their story since season 1, because now you can kind of go back and rewatch that with like a fun new little flavor in your head. This is also a reference to a line in the book where he goes to talk to Daphne to try and make sense of his feelings. Daphne and Colin, we don't see them interact so much, and Phoebe Dynevor isn't in season 3 at all, so he doesn't have this moment with her where they're able to do their brother-sister bond, whereas like in season 1, Daphne's the one that helps him sort out the Marina Thompson thing, right? And, Anthony, of all people, encourages him to tell Penelope exactly how he feels. That's just chef's kiss. That's so precious.
He's like, you have to tell her. Have you told her yet?
So
and
sweet.
I'm like, okay, Anthony, look at you. Let's talk about our feelings. That's right. Growth. Look at that growth.
We see, after this delightful scene between the brothers, that Portia confronts Penelope. Portia Featherington, surprisingly unhappy with this news. She accuses Penelope of trapping Colin. She says Debling was the most reasonable match because of his eccentricities, because he would allow her to have so much independence. And she accuses Penelope of throwing away a secure match for a fancy on the neighbor boy. Girl.
What she's communicating is, hey, Debling's attainable for you because nobody else is going to come take him from you. Colin, that's a fantasy. This isn't going to last.
The most eligible bachelor of the season.
Somebody else is going to come tickle his fancy and he's going to leave you for them. She can't fathom that Colin could fall in love with her or take her seriously.
We already knew Portia Featherington is not riding for Penelope like at any fucking time, but this, such a verbal and outright confirmation, sucks. It sucks.
Yeah, no, she's pretty much saying like, you should have kept your standards low.
Yeah, ew, you're gross. As she is going off on this tirade against Penelope, Colin has arrived at the Featherington home to, I'm sure, greet Lady Featherington, talk to his fucking fiance, and he walks in on this conversation and he's like, hold the fuck up, bitch. This may not be my home, but I'm about to treat it like it is. I'm gonna teach you some shit.
When I saw this scene, the way I was like, oh shit, Nadja, I'm like, play that back. I need to see that again. It felt so satisfying to see him put Portia in her place. I proposed to her out of love. She is the most eligible one amongst you. I advise you to not sully our Bridgerton name.
Our Bridgerton name. She about to be my bride, bitch. Fuck out of here. And then he's like, all right, Penelope, we're fucking out. Let's blow this popsicle stand. And they leave. And where Paola and I are from, es un maldito boche.
Y bien thou. I got emotional at that scene. Because the joy I felt when he defended her like that and like her reaction, I was like, oh my God, it made me emotional to see that display of love and protection from him against her mom. I mean, her mom who's supposed to be her champion, but is constantly bringing her down. So I love to see that. And Portia was stunned. She was too stunned. And throughout Colin and Penelope's relationship, in each season, you have seen him come to her rescue in one way or the other. Last season, he even told her, I will always protect you. And we've seen that continue through this season, from helping her find confidence to this moment right here that we just talked about when he defends her against her own mom. So Colin whisks her away and he takes her to an occupied home that apparently has been in the Bridgerton family for a long time. And Colin presents it to Penelope as their new home once they are married.
Fresh.
And what's the first thing we see, babies? A chaise lounge plays perfectly front and center in front of a mirror. Let's fucking go. The first thing I noticed, though, before the chaise lounge, is this home is clad in deep teal and yellow. It is already pollen coated. We associate Colin with like this deeper shade of the Bridgerton blue. And of course, we all know we associate Penelope and the Featheringtons with the color yellow.
I do want to call out just briefly that associating navy with Colin or darker blue with Colin, the color deepens with him as he ages. Season 1, he's wearing tons of pastel blue. He's a baby.
Yeah, yep.
Baby faced, baby clothed. Season 2, it's like a more of a mix. You see a little bit more decoration. It gets a little darker and a little more fancy because he's like getting older and more worldly. And then season 3, we get into his pirate era and we're getting into the navy, dark teal. Like the colors get significantly darker and he looks more like roguish.
Yeah, yeah.
And bringing in yellow, literally just in like the trim, yellow accents on the walls and like yellow cushions. And I thought that color progression was done really well.
Yes, love that color story for them. And as he's trying to paint the picture of their lives in this home, right? Very much like that scene where he brings her into the Bridgerton house and he's like, okay, imagine it with me, Pen. Like when he's going to imagine the ball and they want to practice. He does something similar where he's like, here's where we'll put this furniture and here's where we'll do this. It's so sweet to see him so excited about that.
Mm-hmm.
He looks at Penelope and she's still unsure and he's like, he notices that something's wrong with her and she's still pretty shaken up about how he defended her against her mother because no one's ever stood up for her in that way. And he assures her once again that he will always stand up for her. And for the first time, he tells her, I love you. I love how this came out so naturally for him. This is just me. I love you. This is what I'm going to do for you always. And this girl who probably hasn't heard this from her own family has to ask him like, are you sure? Because she hasn't been shown what could be lovable about her. So he turns her to face this mirror that's in the room with them and verbally and physically starts to count the ways as they both gaze at her reflection. And he stands behind her and starts to list all of her best qualities, inside and out. Her cleverness, her bravery, her hair, her eyes, her lips, her skin, her breasts. All as he's caressing her and showing her how desirable she is. And watching him give her these verbal affirmations along with the physical affirmations was so beautifully done. I mean, and all to the tune of Ariana Grande's POV. It felt so on the nose for this scene. And this mirror symbolizing exposure in the literal sense as he's undressing her and uncovering her physically, but also her reflection representing her internally and what there is still left to uncover. Girl, and then this man tells her to lay down. The way this man delivered this line, I was like, yes, sir. Yes. Yes. Where and how low? Because, and then we see him undressing. There's this bit where he whips his belt and I he didn't need to whip his belt like that is all that I'm saying. But it worked and did something for me visually. It was appreciated. But it felt a little aggressive. He approaches her, tells her she's beautiful. And the way this man just walks her through it, and something tells me this man is going to walk her through it on the reg. Because as we know, this man's wordy. He likes to tell you how he feels. He likes to affirm his experience. And I love that for her. And I love how this scene also communicates the dynamics of their relationship a little bit because he even tells her, let me take care of everything. And that's his thing. He always wants to do things for her, take care of her. And she's like, no, tell me. She wants to take control of this experience for herself. Similar to the moment in the carriage where she runs her hands through his hair. It's her taking agency and wanting to be an active participant in her own sexual experience. And another thing that I loved is how they ended this scene in laughter, which is so them, to always find the lightness in everything. And this portrayal of this scene, I think, was so perfect to who they are as characters. And this scene is almost verbatim from the book. From the moment they're on that sofa, even that thrust that looked slightly painful is written as him trying to inch himself in until he ultimately thrust forward, embedding himself to the hilt, quote unquote. This scene from the mirror to the chase goes on for about 7 minutes. And in the book, it's a full chapter of about 9 pages. When you're reading this scene in the book, it actually takes place in his bedroom at Bridgerton house after the engagement party. As a matter of fact, right before this scene, he was mad at her for publishing As Ladies Whistle Down after he thought they agreed that she wasn't going to do that anymore. And in my opinion, this scene carries so much more weight in the book because he's choosing to go all in after already knowing her secret and knowing her fully. And so during some post-coital snuggling, we get another quote directly from the book when Penelope asks if she looks a mess. And he very satisfyingly answers, yes, but you're my mess.
The correct answer is no, you look great. No, I'm kidding. Keep going.
And he makes it a point to let her know that although she considers him experienced, there is nothing that compares to his experience with her, which I think was very sweet. While they lay there in the chase, which looks very uncomfortable, by the way. Nothing about it looked comfortable. But she reflects on herself in the mirror when she seems to decide to want to open up to him. And she starts what we believe would have been a confession of her Lady Whistledown secret. But then they are interrupted by a knock on the door. And I fucking hate this trope. The I didn't get a chance to tell you trope. I hate it in my bones. She couldn't find the opportunity to tell him, but she found the opportunity to get fondled, though. But
Jesus.
Okay. Anyway.
Yeah, the I didn't get a chance to tell you. Like, Paola and I were talking about this because of one of the books that I was reading. The trope of, we'll talk about it when I get back. And you're like, you're going to die.
You're never going to see that person again. Nope.
That person's going to die. Bye. Bye-bye. The way my anxiety is set up, I'm like, if you don't tell me now,
That's what I'm saying.
I can't say what I'll do.
Because honestly, how'd you get there? How are you about to get back? You're going to be in a carriage, right? Just you two? Perfect time. Let's go. Hey, I got to tell you something. But no, doesn't happen. Then we're supposed to believe that they left and got into Colin's carriage without anyone seeing them. Fine, we'll believe that too. Queen Charlotte, up in her palace, is confused and quite frankly offended by the fact that Lady Whistledown did not criticize her in her last column. And she has decided that it's time to raise the stakes. And she sends her royal messengers to announce that there's a £5,000 reward to anyone who unmasks Lady Whistledown. So she's mad if Lady Whistledown critiques her, and she's mad if Lady Whistledown doesn't critique her. So here we are.
How do we win? How do we win?
You don't. Colin and Penelope get the notice while they're in the carriage, and his comments that finally Lady Whistledown will get the consequences she deserves dissuade Penelope from confessing at that moment again.
Yeah.
I hate this fucking trope.
Like, okay, one, the way my anxiety is set up, you're not going to tell me later. You're going to tell me now.
Yeah, like, we're going to stop everything that we're doing until you tell me what's going on.
Guess what I'm not going to do? Stop bugging you until you fucking tell me. The second way that my anxiety is set up is keeping something from someone else will destroy me from the inside. Like the anxiety, and I think maybe that's what you're supposed to feel as the viewer. The anxiety you feel for Penelope as this is all kind of coming to a head is like, the stakes are high and getting higher. Next, we're going to go to Cressida, because you know who else is thinking about this fucking reward? Cressida Cowper. Because back at her house, Eloise is talking at her, because Eloise does not talk to people. She talks at them.
Seriously.
Pacing back and forth, ranting about how she thinks Penelope used her to get to Colin, because Eloise is the center of the universe. And I love Eloise as a character because I think she has lots of great qualities, but she's really losing me in part 2 of season 3 because
truly
the impossibility of her just pausing for half of a second and taking a step back and being like, oh shit, wait. Penelope and Colin always wrote to each other. How did I not know that there was something there? But we're brand new to this situation. Girl, okay. Also, another thing I want to say is like, Dika, she's friends with Cressida Cowper. Cressida is struggling because her father is like threatening to engage her off to some grimy old man because she hasn't gotten any quote unquote suitable men. Cressida is fucking bummed trying to find a way out of this shit. That is what's taking precedence. Not I feel bad because this girl that used to be my friend likes my brother. Like, I'm sorry, that's stupid. And Eloise
Right.
is incapable. The most empathetic we've ever seen Eloise, and maybe this is like to get you to love her, you know, as a viewer, is when Lord Featherington dies in season 1. And she just goes to Penelope and is just very openly like, I'll be here for you every single day as you mourn the loss of your father. You're my best friend and I love you so much. So you know she's capable of the kindness. She's just so clouded by her own bullshit. She like literally cannot see other people.
And when you think about the bullshit, it's so trivial
And
in
dumb.
comparison to what Cressida is facing. So we learn that Cressida is being forced to marry a man thrice her age. And she seems to, in this moment, have submitted to this fate as she tries to picture maybe the pros. Yeah, I'll have money. Maybe I'll have a little freedom because he's an older gentleman. I'll have social influence.
Maybe
because
he'll
he's
fucking
a lord.
die.
Maybe I can enjoy being a rich old man's wife. But it turns out that this man is the worst. That evening, he starts laying down rules that she will have to follow as his wife. She'll dress in grays and browns, attend 1 ball a month, avoid music and other modern filth, and provide him with 4 or 5 babies. And something I noticed in this episode, we get to see Cressida's drawing room from a different angle than we saw it in part 1, where we're looking at the other side of it. And I noticed that you get a view of the other half of the room. Every few feet, there are columns along the walls, furthering this illusion that Cressida is quite captive in her own house because it looks like a cage. While this old guy is spewing at her, she's looking down at the queen's announcement that she had been holding the whole time and figures that if she can find Whistledown, those 5,000 pounds could be her way out. You see that machinating in her head as she sits there listening to this guy tell her what she's not going to be doing as his wife. Eloise, obviously not getting much sympathy from Cressida because she's actually going through real trauma and distress for herself, is sulking in the Bridgerton drawing room when she is encountered by Kate. And we get a nice callback to their conversation in season 2, where they bounce off each other and support one another at Aubrey Hall. Eloise admits that she's hurt Colin didn't tell her about Penelope, and she's also kind of upset that everyone seems to be pairing off. And Kay, after her experience with her sister last season, encourages Eloise to be more honest with her brother about her feelings. So that night, Eloise finds Colin in his study and they finally talk. He tries to talk to her about his feelings for Penelope and she won't hear it. She will not hear it because he fell in love with Penelope, quote unquote, behind her back. Shut up, Eloise.
This is what I'm saying, dude. Like, I love Eloise as a character. And then it's like, you keep thinking she's kind of on an up from season 1, season 2. Heartbreak has maybe made her more mature in season 3. No, it's almost like she gets more self-absorbed. You know, at this point, Colin takes the opportunity to remind her that she once loved Penelope too. They were best friends, and he doesn't understand why they aren't friends anymore, but she must remember, right? Penelope's good qualities. He asks for her blessing. Eloise does not give it, which sucks. But he gives her the notice of the queen's bounty because he thinks that it might cheer her up. Because isn't that so goofy? The queen's going to give whoever unmasks Whistledown 5,000 pounds. And now Eloise is like, oh, fuck, oh, shit. This person that I, quote unquote, don't care about and isn't my friend anymore. I'm worried about her. Ready to give the blessing to this union is Lady Portia Featherington. It's not even just suck up mode. It's not even brown nosing. This woman is kissing all up in that Bridgerton ass.
Oh my God.
Because after, quote unquote, reflecting on her behavior with Penelope and the things she said that Colin heard, right, earlier that day, she's like, we need to do better. We, not you, fucking horrible person. We need to do
maybe
better.
also because that solicitor keeps coming around. She's like, oh shit.
It's like, if any one of my sons-in-law are going to save me, it's going to be Colin.
And I was going to say, in our discussion of episode 3 and 4, I think we drew some parallels between Portia and Penelope. And after having had that conversation, I found it so interesting that they show Portia reflecting in a mirror much like we see Penelope typically reflecting throughout this season, trying to reflect on herself, figure out what she wants to do. She focuses in on a mirror and looks at herself. Even in that moment with Colin, she sees her reflection in a mirror and decides that she wants to be honest at that moment. Portia's problem is that she couldn't have imagined a love match for Penelope. One, because she underestimates her, and two, because she sees it as something that's uncommon. And quote, not just for Penelope, but for any of us, unquote. Similar to what we were saying in our breakdown of episodes 3 and 4, this is Portia projecting her own limitations onto Penelope again. And a big part of this ongoing theme in this part of the season is her starting to dismantle that. At this point, it's still pretty new and awkward, and we're still all rolling our eyes. But we start to see her develop this and start to see Penelope in a different light. And this comes at the encouragement of Varley, who's kind of like, hey, why don't you just talk to her about it? So this is when Portia starts to take a different approach. And that approach is kissing ass.
Ugh. And I get that. Low key, I hate it though, because I'm like, ugh.
I was that evening, Prudence and Philippa are already poking at Penelope over her engagement with Colin and speculating, talking shit. And she walks in to shut it down and reminds them, let me remind you ladies, that Featheringtons support one another.
Bitch,
when?
Since when?
Penelope's face is all of us. She's like, is the support in the room with us? Or
has the support ever been here?
Excuse
Have
me?
we met the support? I don't think so.
The way I rolled my eyes in this whole scene, I was so pissed. So Penelope, understandably pissed about first her mother's sudden change of affection and about the queen's bounty, goes and writes a column mocking the queen for her fruitless hunts and criticizing Portia for sucking up to the Bridgertons now that her and Colin are engaged.
Penelope, what a wild decision on your behalf. Otra vez, you were saying, I think, either in season 2, first half of season 3, guys, it's boring together. But you were saying like, yo, you're poking the fucking bear.
Poking the bear. But also, the funny part about this whole plot is that what got the queen to start this hunt for her by setting up this bounty was from her not poking at the queen.
Yeah, that's true. You're right.
So maybe as she kept poking, she wouldn't be hunting for her because her ass would be concerned about her poking. I don't...
It's like, ¿cuál?
¿Cuál? Which one is it? But again, it could also be the writing. Anywho, so Kate, the new Viscountess, has organized a beautiful engagement party at the Bridgerton house and has adorned it with blue and yellow flowers, of course. How did she know? How did she know? What she didn't know, however, is that this shit was going to get unhinged real quick. Portia throws shade at entry, yet gushes at Colin.
The boldness of this woman.
Benedict introduces his fuck buddy Tilly to the family.
Ooh.
Just okay.
And literally everyone's like, fine.
Hi, Tilly. You seem like a good time. Benedict hasn't brought a girl over in a long time.
Ever.
Ever. So maybe we're supposed to get the impression here that, okay, maybe he's like actually likes this person and that's why he's bringing her around his family. Mm-hmm. Will and Alice arrive, and little Baron Nikki immediately makes eyes at Hyacinth. And then they all go and play. It is too cute. Cressida apparently invited herself to get advice from Eloise.
Which is insane. Insane
Wild.
Behavior. Dike invited herself
To Penelope's engagement party.
Right? Like, I'm looking at you sideways. If you invite yourself to my birthday dinner at an open restaurant and you're inviting yourself to someone's private engagement party, that is so fucking crazy.
So, it's to get advice from Eloise, or to force herself into the plot.
God.
But Eloise is too busy antagonizing Penelope because she simply cannot let her fucking live or have her moments. I think maybe it's because Eloise doesn't care about like love and relationship and marriage. Like she sees it as so frivolous maybe that she can't let her for a minute just enjoy this moment with her fiance. She can't let her live at her engagement party. She has to make it suck. I want to smother her with a pillow. And she gives Penelope an ultimatum at her engagement party. It's like, listen, if today before midnight you don't tell Colin that you're Lady Whistledown, I will.
Which is insane.
Enjoy your party. You tell him or I'll tell him. Lady Danbury is side-eyeing Marcus and then side-eyeing Violet for inviting Marcus. However, not before praising Penelope for catching a husband just for being herself. And then we have John. Poor John Sterling, who has a very awkward interaction with Francesca when she introduces him to Anthony, who tries to make a joke and then John completely misses it. He couldn't pick up on the joke. Everybody's laughing except him. It's so sad and awkward. Francesca tries to encourage the poor man to tell a story in front of these people who might as well be strangers to him. And he can't get the words out. And then she has to literally whisk him away. And then Colin tries to give a toast, which starts beautifully, by the way, by him telling the story of how he and Penelope met. And he says, in the mud, you may happen to be blessed with your future bride. And behind him, if you pay attention, is Kate and Anthony, who look at each other. And if you remember their hilarious Pall Mall fail when they fell into the mud when they were trying to get the Pall Mall balls. So I thought that was a sweet callback and a sweet detail to catch. He continues with, I look forward to our life together, to knowing each other fully.
Has he been talking to Eloise? I'm kidding.
And then Eloise tries to cut into the toast.
And I hate that.
And makes it super awkward as she raises her glass to Penelope and says, here's to truly knowing each other before the clock runs out. Jesus. What does that mean, Eloise? And everybody looks at her like, what did you mean by that? And Colin, he just tries to continue with his toast. And then Portia interrupts him to say that she's proud of Penelope because now she needs to smother her with affection because she hasn't given it to her for 19 years. Kate senses the vibes and intuitively decides to move this party to the drawing room. Maybe these people will interact better there. They decide it's a game night.
The first one up for the game, which Anthony announces is being played by Bridgerton Rules, is Penelope. And it's a word game. You got to give a riddle. She poses her riddle. Anthony just immediately starts shouting every single flower he's ever heard of because one of the clues is a flower.
He's only heard of 3.
And the first is lilies, forget-me-nots, lilacs. It was very, very funny. And that's another, I feel like that's more Jonathan Bailey.
Funny.
Jonathan Bailey-isms. Of course, between Penelope and Eloise, the one who guesses correctly is Eloise. She guesses heart's ease, which is also known as a pansy. So a little bit of foreshadowing in this scene, if her storyline remains true to the book, which pairs her up with Sir Philip. Sir Philip is a botanist and likes to study flowers. So Eloise knowing about flowers, that can be kind of fun. Second thing, heart's ease is a flower associated with love, both romantic and platonic, and in Shakespeare, it is used to mend a broken heart, something Eloise and Penelope are currently dealing with in their broken friendship. Penelope and Eloise dominate the first couple of rounds. Penelope and Eloise, low-key, are me and my husband playing any word association game. We fucking crush. And what other words do they guess? They guess conundrum. They guess friendship. No, bummer.
This is a friendship conundrum.
This is a friendship conundrum, and it's a conundrum friendship where 2 conundrums become friends. It feels like this whole party was like designed to raise Penelope's blood pressure as much as humanly possible. Could we give her a heart attack? Could we kill her? Less than an hour before midnight, Colin mentions Whistledown and how she will not remain nameless for long now that the Queen has set a bounty out for her head. Benedict calls her vulgar. Alice Mondrich says she'll ruin her family once she's discovered. And Colin agrees that no one will want to marry her. And this sends Penelope into a fucking tailspin.
Jeez.
She stumbles out of this room in a panic, truly ready to have a panic attack. And you get that kind of same unsteady camera work that you get at the beginning of the episode where Colin is leading Penelope into the Bridgerton home to announce their engagement. Colin tries to go after her, but Penelope hides behind the closed door of a room, and he doesn't try any of the doors.
It's
very the opposite of Scooby-Doo. You know, where they try every door. It's the opposite of that. It's him looking in the hallway being like, no,
I guess she's not here. A part of me really wanted for him to find her and help her in that moment and for her to confess. Even if the night continued to progress how it's meant to progress. But have this moment, and then when the night continues to progress as it was going to, then they face all of that shit together somehow.
He goes back into the drawing room because why look for your fiance rather when she looks like she's in distress? During all of this, Cressida is trying to get Eloise's advice on how to handle her situation, right? Like, she's going to marry this grimy, disgusting old man. What do I do? Eloise sucks ass and is a terrible fucking friend, is not paying any attention to Cressida at all, too distracted by her own shit, basically ignoring her. Like, at this point, it's almost like we're seeing Eloise getting tired of Cressida. Her proximity to Penelope is growing because Penelope is engaged to her brother. I feel like Eloise is almost kind of like, yeah, I'm still mad at Penelope, but I kind of still like her better than I like you somehow. I don't know.
I don't get that here. I don't get that in this scene. In this scene, she's fully antagonizing Penelope.
It's so strange. It's very weird. Girlfriendship. We've mentioned this before. Girlfriendship it can be a very toxic thing. We see Cressida, as she continues getting ignored by her only fucking friend, Eloise, who again sucks at this, she's getting more and more desperate, and she's not finding any relief. The conversation eventually turns to Lady Whistledown. Cressida tries to participate. Everyone keeps talking over her. And this is one of the moments where I do feel genuinely bummed for her. Like, anytime I see her interact with her parents, and during this scene where everybody's like, yeah, fuck Cressida. Anyway, what I was saying, like, it makes me feel for her. She's clearly such a disempowered character. Everybody's talking about the power, the freedom, the money that Whistledown must enjoy, and that she wouldn't have to marry because she is making so much money, because she's able to sustain herself. And Cressida's like, click, click, click. Some things are landing in my head right now. She tries to talk to Eloise one more time, but this time it's about uncovering Whistledown for the reward money and using it to leave and live elsewhere, using it to just fuck off her family, get the fuck out of that engagement her father wants to put her in. And Eloise is like, bitch, are you crazy? And just dismisses her again. Doesn't even take a moment to be like, Cressida, I'm so sorry about what you're going through. You being forced to marry a disgusting old man sucks. Nope. Nothing. She gets nothing. Like, Eloise is a comically bad friend.
No empathy from her.
Penelope makes her way back into the room. She's still breathless. She's struggling. It's a minute to midnight. Eloise is making eyes at Penelope because she's like, remember how you're going to fucking tell my brother before midnight? Colin immediately goes toward Penelope because he's like, where have you been? Are you okay? She can barely speak. He assumes that she's feeling insecure about their engagement and the amount of attention that they're getting and isn't sure about marrying him anymore, which is like very sad. That's like a really sad place that he went.
Yeah. No, yeah. And I feel like here's where you start seeing those first signs of how his insecurities are triggered when the people around him aren't feeling happy. He's an empathetic person in that he can sense people's discomfort. And then it's like, is it me? What can I do? How can I fix this for you if I can't fix it for you?
What am I doing?
You know, very people pleasery.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Shit, me neither. And he's been clocking her all night. He's been watching her discomfort all night. He has been sensing her uneasiness all night. He also hasn't left her side all night until that one moment where she leaves the room and then she can't find her in the hall. So he's very in tune with that. She's not feeling good. Is she regretting me? Is she regretting everything that happened? For that to be the first thing that he thinks about is kind of sad. Mm-hmm. But then I also feel a little bit like I do with Eloise, like, my guy, not everything's about you.
Not everything's about you, but in this one, I give him a pass because I'm like, it's your fiance. I could see how you would make this about you. Whereas Eloise is like, shut the fuck up. Like, go take a nap. Yeah. And Penelope's breath starts getting shorter and shorter. She tries to talk to him. She like can't really get out any words. Eloise sees this and walks up to her because she's like, you know what? You're feeling pretty bad right now. And I think I should make it worse. Is that a bullet hole? God. I'm going to stick my finger in it.
Yo, truly. She sees she's in distress and her reaction is to, oh, it looks like you can't tell him. Let me help you out here.
Insane. Honestly, like genuinely insane behavior. Colin stops her, asks Eloise to get a cool towel for Penelope, who is like legit fainting. Nobody else is seeing this somehow?
Eloise saw it and didn't give a fuck.
Yeah.
Just Colin is concerned with what's going on with Penelope.
There are so many storylines overlapping at this moment. Like, we're getting to this massive climax at the end of this episode because across the room, same scene, same party. Across the room, Anthony and Kate make their baby announcement to their matriarchs, right? Lady Bridgerton, Lady Danbury, who's essentially Kate's matriarch in Lady Mary's absence. Right before they're going to announce it to all their family and friends, they tell, you know, the most important women in their lives who are so excited and so happy. That's a big distraction. This big conversation about Whistledown by like the fire is a big distraction. Penelope fainting, Eloise being a bitch, and then Colin trying to help her, other distraction. Guess what, baby? We're about to get a fourth distraction, and that's Cressida standing up in the middle of the fucking room declaring that she is Lady Whistledown.
My God. Penelope just drops. Finally, that was the last straw. Fainted. And this angst carries you through for the next 3 episodes.
The panic you feel in this scene. Like, now I don't even want to say panic, just, yeah, the angst, the rising anxiety, this like suspense the whole time, because you're just like, what the fuck is going on? And then you're also kind of thinking to yourself, how is this all going to tie back, right? Like, how are we going to resolve these threads or keep pulling them for next season? Guess what, baby? Some of them aren't going to get resolved, and you just have to be okay with that.
Some of them are just going to disappear.
Some of them, it's like they never threaded at all. And that's so like not a Bridgerton thing. I think that's why I find it so frustrating to have unresolved, and I don't want to say resolved, not every plot point gets resolution, unaddressed, weirdly halted plot points. Because Bridgerton is, there's so much detail in everything, so much thought given to everything, that I know this was intentional, and that's what makes me mad. It's not like, oh, it was careless. Like, you know,
I think most of what we saw just encompassed in this season. And they left everything in a way where they can choose to pick it up next season or not. This can disappear this season and it'll be fine. That first episode of part 2, which again, I want to get to a point where I'm not saying the first episode of part 2. I want to say, oh, on episode 5, this happens. But It feels so removed.
Yeah.
It felt so removed.
It
from
literally
what we
could have been its own season. Part 2 could have been its own season.
It could have been its own season. And then you have time to like really delve into these, you know, to all these different storylines and really explore them and really give them meaning and depth. But we didn't get that. So yeah, that's how you're left in that first episode. And when we carry through to episode 6, you have no idea what to expect.
So going into episode 6, titled Romancing Mr. Bridgerton, the only thing that's getting romanced are these fucking plot lines. There are too many. The next morning, after the fucking engagement party from hell, everyone is in a tizzy about Cressida being Lady Whistledown. Everybody turns on her so quickly. Not that she had a lot of people in her corner to begin with. No one's a fan of her. Everybody shuts her shit down. The friends that she was hanging out with at balls call her a cruel old maid, a spinster on the shelf, except for Miss Kenworthy, who we met very briefly at the beginning of the season. I think she's a genius, is what Miss Kenworthy says. Bitch.
Miss Kenworthy's was the shits.
She's like, I've got an eye for business, and this is a businesswoman. Penelope, however, is at home rushing to write a column quickly to discredit Cressida's claim that she is Lady Whistledown. Penelope and I are different, and that's to her credit. That's to her benefit. She shouldn't be like me. I'm prideful in some ways and not in others. So, like, I don't need people to know I'm Whistledown if I've got the coins, and if Whistledown's anonymous anyway, and then Cressida claims credit. Like, I don't really care about that because Cressida's a dumbass. So everybody's going to eventually figure out that she's a dumbass and she didn't write this. I don't need them to know it was me, though. Penelope needs this. Like, there is something in her that is so frustrated and upset at Cressida taking credit for this, at Cressida being the bitch causing all this conversation. Penelope needs it to be her.
No, she can't have it be Cressida because Cressida has been bullying her whole life. So out of all people to claim Whistledown's name, she can't let her take it. She could have, who knows? I don't know. If Eloise claims to be Lady Whistledown, would she be as pressed? Maybe, maybe not. But I think it's more about it being Cressida Cowper. That's a lot more explicit in the book. I mean, in the show, you understand it because you've seen her story since season 1 and you've seen who Cressida is to her. They didn't offer a lot of exposition other than when Eloise goes and talks to her in her room that morning. She can't be the one to take my name. Lady Whistledown is my name. So it definitely in the series, it sounds a lot more possessive.
Yeah.
Whereas in the book, you definitely understand she wanted Lady Danbury to trade credit before she would have let Cressida trade credit. Because in the book, a lot of people suspect it's Lady Danbury.
Yeah.
So that's a part of the plot there.
And again, the queen isn't a character in the book. So Lady Danbury is not beholden to her friendship with the queen, which is why it's funny to think of her as Lady Whistledown in the books.
Right.
However, Penelope, home, furiously writing, feigning illness, is paid a visit by her doting fiancé, Colin Bridgerton, who is concerned about how she might be feeling, considering the fact that ella cayó redonda the night before at the end of this fucking engagement party.
Cayó redonda. Yes, quite literally passed out.
He lets her know that he will be patient until she's ready to talk about whatever it is that's bothering her, because at this point there have been like 2 separate occasions, I think, where she's been like, Colin, I need to tell you something, and then nothing fucking happens. And then she is either cut off by some event, something else happens, Cressida announces she's Lady Whistledown, like many different things that have been impeding her honesty to Colin. Portia, nosy as fuck, lingers in the room pretending to fix flowers with the pretense of chaperoning their conversation. Bitch, you ain't need to chaperone shit. The ship has sailed.
The cake has been eaten, baby.
Yeah, we're not out here for chaperones. We're out here in the streets. She's never given a shit about Penelope being chaperoned.
Exactly.
Like half of a singular shit.
Never.
So that leaves us as the viewer to wonder, like, would Penelope have told him? Would she have been honest with him if they had been alone? Is her mom now the 3rd incident of somebody getting in the way of her being honest? I don't know, something to think about. But let's take a minute to appreciate this beautiful moment. You know, they're an engaged couple. They're still happy. I mean, Penelope is just mired in a pit of anxiety, but Colin's straight chilling. I mean, that boy there are no bad thoughts in his mind. It's all sunny days from here.
What I love about this scene, the beauty that I find in this moment, is how they're sitting together as an engaged couple on the settee where she sat for so long, gazing out that window, looking out to the Bridgerton house. Here she is sitting with the man that she has loved her whole life as he presents her with her betrothal ring. And the symbolism here of him placing the ring on her ink-stained fingers from writing as Whistledown. So to me, this shot is visually representing that he is not only marrying Penelope, he is marrying Lady Whistledown as well. And before they can be happy, they need to be able to both embrace that together.
When he notices her ink-stained fingers, he asks if she's been writing. This is probably the first outright lie that she tells Colin. I mean, Paola, what do you think? I'm not 100% sure.
Come for me if I'm wrong, but I think this might be the first blatant lie, like blatant in his face lie. She's been lying by omission since day 1, but this scene stood out to me so much as like the first time she's blatant lying in his face. And then it made me struggle a little bit with how she's going about this. It's almost like she's letting the secret overshadow her own happiness. It's no longer like out of her hands, really. She has a little bit of control of how this can play, and she's choosing it to overshadow this moment that should be happy for her. Before, in episode 1, we felt like it was Eloise that was on her, wouldn't let her have her moment. Now in this episode, you feel like it's her. Like, you can't take control of the situation. You just have to be brave enough to do that. And I don't think she just has the bravery yet. Girl, you can be out promenading with your man and enjoying your engagement, communicating with him honestly, but instead she's locked up in her room, more concerned about Cressida's lie than her own lie.
And speaking of Cressida, we get another glimpse of her in this story, kind of in the aftermath of her impulsive announcement that she's Lady Whistledown. She is being berated by her father who famously fucking sucks, because Lord Greer has rescinded his offer of marriage. Oh no, I tremble, I shudder. And she probably thinks to herself, fucking dope, great, amazing, like my plan worked. I don't have to marry this absolutely disgusting bag of bones. But now her father threatens to send her to Wales to live with her aunt Jo March? Just kidding. No.
No.
Joe who sucks. Lady Cowper, knowing her daughter, knows that she isn't Whistledown. And unfortunately, this is one of those moments where I'm like, oh, Lady Cowper is all of our mothers, because doesn't everyone have a mother who goes, I don't think you're smart enough to have done that? And then they're right. Doesn't everyone have a mom like that?
And then they're right.
Like, doesn't everyone have a mom that goes, I don't know, I just don't think you're capable of that.
I just don't think you can do that. Yeah, no, I wouldn't do that if I was you.
Wow, I never would have expected it from you because you're too fucking stupid. Tell me I'm wrong.
She knows her daughter.
Yeah, having a mother is its own trauma. So Lady Cowper tries to convince Cressida to rescind her statement, saying that she spoke in error because she was drunk or hysterical, qué sé yo. And the embarrassment of that is wild. Not only is she like panicking, right? She's really backed into a corner, lashing out like an animal would. But now it's like, not only does your mom think you're a dumbass, she doesn't think this is something that you're capable of, because genuinely you're not. But now having to go back out in front of everybody and show your ass and be like, oh, I lied, everybody. Just kidding.
Sorry. I had one too many.
Absolutely fucking not. No. And at that moment, the queen's footmen walk into the Cowper home to fetch her. So now Cressida and Lady Cowper are visiting the queen, and they enter the throne room. The queen is wearing another hollowed out wig. Big fans of a hollow wig containing things this season, right?
I love the hollow wigs. I think they're just, they're so different.
They're fun.
Like, you don't expect them.
Yeah.
This particular hollowed wig, though, inside has dark blue hydrangeas. And I can confirm that because I do know what a hydrangea looks like. And I did look it up. Unlike lilacs, if you know, you know. She does indeed have blue hydrangeas inside her wig. And can I tell you what blue hydrangeas symbolize? Regrets and rejection.
Yikes. The queen kind of asks all the right questions, because I think rightfully so. The queen is also suspicious. She does not believe that Cressida is capable of this. And that, I just want to say, like, sidebar, damn, it sucks that this, like, secret person that no one has been able to pinpoint, nobody knows who the fuck they are, you come forward, anybody, right? Just come forward and you're like, I'm the secret person. I've hidden it from you all. Just to have everyone be like, nah, not you though.
I mean, she also shouldn't have done that.
Of course. Did she bring it on herself? Yes, of course.
She did not think this shit through.
Do you play stupid games and win stupid prizes? Yes. But damn, exactly. The insult of that. So the queen asks, you know, why are you coming forward now? And Cressida's like, girl, I want my reward. I am out here for these bills, 5,000 pounds. If you're Lady Whistledown, says the queen, why do you need a measly 5,000 pounds?
You sneeze on 5,000.
Yo, you take that, you put that up in your hollow wig, you wear it to a party. Cressida's like, oh shit. And the queen susses her out right away and goes, where's your latest issue? That should have come out this morning. What the fuck is up? And Cressida can't provide her latest issue and lies about the printer not wanting to work with her anymore due to the scandal. Okay, girl, fine. We're thinking quick on our feet. Maybe you're not as dumb as everybody thinks. Or maybe you are. The queen allows her the opportunity to publish a fresh issue of Whistledown to convince her. The queen is like, bitch, I'm setting a trap. I know you're not writing this shit. If not, Cressida will be banished from the queen's court, which means she will no longer be part of the Ton. I'm curious about this because wouldn't that be lit for Cressida?
Right? To not be part of the Ton?
Wouldn't banishment be like kind of dope? It's like, what? Do you take away all of her parents' money? Like, is that part of it? Because
do they lose their title?
Right, because I don't really understand. But it's not her mother being banished. It's Cressida being banished.
Yeah, but she lived under their roof.
So I don't really know if that has that ramification on them.
Overall, I feel like this whole experience, it's equivalent to like going to the vice principal's office.
Yeah.
Like, for a monarch with the ire that Queen Charlotte has about Lady Whistledown, for her, I would have imagined that this was going to be like an interrogation.
Yes.
I imagined that this was going to be like
some Tower of London shit.
Or sit your ass down right here and let me see you write the paper. Go ahead. Who's your printer?
We'll go now.
Give me your sources.
Because they'll know you, right?
We gonna lock all these motherfuckers up. They're also part of this treason because they knew that they were printing Whistledown.
Yeah.
Who are they? Lock them up. Drain the swamp.
Oh, no! God, not a hashtag lock her up. Damn.
I feel like that's what this warranted. And she was pretty much like, all right, go bring me proof. Like, bring me proof. This is a flight risk. She could
it's literally
bounce
like,
tomorrow.
okay, detention. But I guess she's like, Cressida's not going to bounce because Cressida wants that money. And I think that's why the queen is like, yeah, okay, come back for your money if you can provide a fucking issue of Whistledown. And guess what, bitch?
True.
Yeah, if you fucking can't, scram, you're out of here. The plot with the queen this season feels so fucking contrived, so underwhelming. Like, we get
that's what I was gonna say. I expected a bit more from the queen than what we ended up getting.
I expected a bit more. She was so underused. It feels like they took aspects of her personality from seasons 1 and 2 and like really dampened them to make her be quote unquote kind. The queen is not kind. Like, we know that already.
Well, we see kind moments from her.
Of course.
Right? We see people bring that out of her. Like when she builds a connection or with Lady Danbury.
Right.
So we know she can be swayed. In order for her to be swayed, she needs to see a spark. She needs to have some type of connection with you. She needs to be able to empathize with you. I could have seen her empathizing with Penelope on a woman-to-woman basis.
I know we didn't cover Queen Charlotte. For people who watched Queen Charlotte, if Penelope had come to her Lady Danbury to the Queen Mother style, when they have their final like tete-a-tete, that battle of wits, like that would have worked. Like Queen Charlotte would have been like, okay, now we better be fucking allies or your shit's really gonna get rocked. Like that would have made sense. Of course, not the fucking Cressida shit, because Cressida's just an asshole for a few years and then suddenly she's Lady fucking Whistledown. Are you joking?
I love it when she tells Cressida, you know, Lady Whistledown is an observer. And Cressida's like, I'm an observer. And she's like, what have you observed other than yourself your whole entire life? I was like,
God damn. Woo.
Cressida has been an observer. She observed Daphne at the Trowbridge Ball. In this season, we know she had observed the chemistry between Penelope and Colin. Also in the way that she kind of called out Eloise earlier in the season when she's like, how about you look at yourself in a looking glass? You know, and yes, she's been mean and pretty much always self-serving, but she's clearly aware of the people around her, or at least that's what the show has told us. Either in this scene, it's either contradicting itself by what the queen says, or it's another way of the show telling us that she continues to be underestimated. I'm interested to see how all of that's going to come back around in season 4, where we hopefully get to see her redemption arc.
The way that the queen was handled, it's lazy. Like the whole thing is lazy. I only want to say the whole thing with Queen Charlotte's storyline is lazy. You don't have her interact with the king at all.
I missed the king this season. I did.
Those are the points where she is at her most sympathetic to the viewer. That's what keeps you from hating her. Those moments and the moments with Lady Danbury and the few moments with like the diamond.
Or add her depth.
Give her depth.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's a rant for like exactly this occasion where we're recording ourselves. Okay. Anyway, Paola, what do you think about the Cowpers?
As I watched the Cowpers this season, I couldn't help but think how their costumes have somehow gotten worse. Like, I understand the drama, right? They've always been dramatic, but it's a lot and like uglier.
Yeah.
And it's specifically in this scene where I was like, yo, they feel borderline Panem.
It's giving Effie Trinket.
Like at any minute, Effie Trinket is going to get off of a train from the Capitol to fetch them. That's what the Cowpers were giving.
And even like Cressida's hair, like, and this is the other thing, like we mentioned this a little bit in our discussion of episode 5, but like there's so much storytelling that they're doing. There's so much detail that they're doing.
There is.
It's muddy.
I think the storytelling behind her costuming was consistent.
Yes.
So you're not confused as to what they're trying to communicate. It was a lot though. We didn't need to see it in every scene.
And
maybe
so much is going on. Like so much is going on with everybody and then everybody's costumes. And then it's like this level of detail has kind of always been part of Bridgerton. But I feel like this season, it's like you're giving us too much to focus on to the point that we're focusing on like nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Going from that, we are now going over to the Bridgertons. We enter the Bridgerton home. It's so much.
Good segue.
But no, like you hear me? It is so much. Everything is so much happening. We go to the Bridgerton home to the tune of Thunder by Imagine Dragons.
Such a weird choice. But then I guess what they were trying to introduce us to is the chaos of the Bridgerton siblings fighting over macaroons in the drawing room. While
Goofy.
poor John is fighting for his life to get everyone's attention.
The
because he wants
neurodivergence
to make
is jumping out.
Because he wants to make an announcement. Francesca ends up having to help him get the attention of her family. As I'm watching in real time in this scene, I feel for him, right? And his struggle to be able to adapt to this very rowdy family. But then I also sense Francesca's frustration at having to step up for him, where she's like, all right, guy, come on, you can do this. Like, I don't want to have to be doing this for you all the time. Then they proceed to undercut the importance of the announcement they're about to make. They announce their engagement and preface it with, we have a small announcement. And John adds, a very small announcement indeed. It foreshadows their short marriage.
Aww.
And when you look at it that way, it's a little sad.
And, you know, the family naturally is very, very happy for them. They don't know the marriage is going to be short. We do. And Violet wants to wait to announce their engagement at the end of the season to limit any backlash from the queen because Francesca dropped Lord Samadani.
You may be expected for her to kind of still like hold the grudge on that. Mm-hmm. But what got her distracted was the fact that Lady Whistledown didn't criticize it. So with Lady Whistledown not criticizing the failure of that ticked her interest and was like, oh, wait, something's going on. Mm-hmm. Now she's distracted by trying to find her to the point where when she interrogates, quote unquote, Cressida, she tries to give her like some hot goss. She tells the queen, I saw Francesca with the Earl Kilmartin. There's probably still time to sway her to Lord Samadani. And the queen's like, I don't give a shit no more.
R.I.P. Lord Samadani. And Francesca asks Lady Bridgerton to speed things up. She wants to get married and fast. And she wants Lady Bridgerton to speak to the queen about it. From this scene with Francesca and Lady Bridgerton, we get a scene with Colin and Eloise. They have to hash out the fact that Eloise is not blessing his relationship with Penelope.
Well, the whole time that they were in the drawing room that morning, she was like eyeing him because I think she's looking to see if maybe Penelope has confessed already. And she's trying to see like what his demeanor might be. And so later on that morning, she goes in to check on him in the study. She walks in on him writing. He seems to be editing or rewriting excerpts from his journal. And in this scene, I was able to pause and make out a little bit of the writing. And in the excerpt that he was writing or editing, it mentions the time he was out with a companion and couldn't help but think about Gregory and Hyacinth. And there's further proof showing that Colin constantly wrote about his family while he was away. There's this picture that Netflix posted where Colin is sitting with his papers. And the team behind this podcast I listen to called What a Barb Podcast. Mm-hmm. It's a fully Pollen podcast. They talk about the books and the series only as far as Pollen is concerned. If you're a deep Pollen fan, they're a good podcast to listen to. So the team behind What a Barb Podcast was able to make out some of the writing on the sheet. And what they were able to make out was, and then there is my friend Penelope, perhaps the smartest person I have ever met besides Eloise. The two of them together would have so much to say about this city. I thought that was so sweet. And to me, I'm thinking, what if Penelope would have stumbled across that paragraph when she stumbled upon his journal, right? So showcasing this writing in the show would have been so meaningful for Colin's character development. They cut these very important aspects of Colin's development that would have really helped viewers get a clearer view of his psyche, while he was traveling, instead of relying solely on Luke Newton's brooding, which is all we get.
You cut 2 subplots and you get a flashback of Colin in a different country, having an internal monologue, looking at something and thinking of Eloise or Penelope.
Right. Or even while he's writing, zoom into what he's writing. The way Lady Whistledown writes and you hear what she's writing in voiceover, maybe while he's writing in his journal, you can hear him say this in voiceover. And so I just feel like the focus on his writing was there, but it was lazy at best because they get you excited to learn more about it especially through Penelope's perspective, right? She keeps asking, are you going to let me read your journals? And you're kind of anticipating this moment where he lets her read her journals because you want to know what he was thinking while he was away. And then they don't really delve into it. It was such a missed opportunity to not explore his writing on a deeper level. You know, oh, he likes to write, and they show you a couple of clips of him writing happily, and they say, you know, he's working on making a manuscript out of his travel journal. And then that's it. These letters exist. You have them on display in a museum. You have it on display online. They exist. They were just not used. And that makes me frustrated. So anyway, as he writes, Eloise comes in and finally is ready to talk to him. But he immediately hits her with the question, do you know she was whistled down? And for a second, Eloise thinks he might be talking about Penelope and lets out a breath when she realizes that he's referring to Cressida. She is cleverly able to answer his questions without necessarily lying outright, where she says, no, I didn't know about Cressida. Not I didn't know about Whistledown. I didn't know about Cressida.
Yep.
And she at some point goes, you know, I'm going to try to make Whistledown go away. And he's like, why? Are you going to go try it? Talk to her? He's like, I'm going to talk to the scribe herself. So lying but not lying. Mm-hmm. She asks him about how he feels, right? Because since the beginning of this season, he's been very vocal about his anger towards Whistledown. So she's asking him, now that she's exposed, how do you feel about it? And his answer is, all that matters is Penelope and her well-being and our future together.
Gross.
And this makes Eloise realize that him learning about Penelope's secret will actually break him. And at that point, I think she becomes scared about him finding out. Where she was so eager for him to find out a couple of nights ago, now she's like, oh shit, but what if he does find out? So what does she do? She decides to go tell Penelope that the best way forward is to put down her pen as Lady Whistledown and not tell Colin at all. Penelope understandably is like, not okay. It's like, no, I'm not letting Cressida take credit for the work that I've been putting in for all of these years. I understand that. I get that. That bitch isn't going to take the credit. It would break her heart. And Eloise answers, well, what about Colin's heart? She then tells her, you can't be both a Bridgerton and Lady Whistledown. And I agree, because obviously Colin would take her name and be Mr. Whistledown.
So funny.
Obviously, that's not going to be the problem.
That's so funny and dumb.
But she ends this conversation with saying, it's just gossip, just let it go. So sister, I want to pose the question. How do you feel about Eloise, the champion for women's independence in this world, telling a fellow woman to give up the independence that she finds in her work for her husband?
I think Eloise is really bad at seeing the bigger picture. And as we've established, she's really bad at understanding people's feelings outside of her own.
And for me, this plea from her, it feels a little selfish because I think before, all she wanted was for him to find out. And as soon as she realized that he will probably be mad at her too, she changes her mind. By Penelope taking this route where she just puts down her pen, doesn't mention anything, let's pretend this never happened, it frees Eloise of the consequences of also keeping this secret from her brother. Ultimately, it's better for him to hear the truth from Penelope than to find out through other means. That's what she's been saying from the beginning, right? And now, and she was doing it aggressively. And now, as soon as she realized how hurt he'll be and that she's part of that hurt, she's like, ooh, I might not want to be part of this problem.
I don't know. Eloise can be really, really chicken shit.
Cuando no le conviene.
Yeah, like it's a bummer because you see her be so outspoken and care so much about very specific slices of issues. Like Eloise is really giving white feminist all the time. And it bums me out because I like her a lot as a character. She's so fiery, but she is so narrow-minded. And I think that's intentional, right? Like I don't think it's like, oh, it's accident.
I think it's part of her
character development.
Yeah. Hope to see.
Like now she's going to go to Scotland and I don't know, maybe she'll come back changed. We're about to find out, but ugh.
And to pile on for Penelope, that evening, Portia checks in on her because she's been in her room the whole time. She had been trying to write down this Whistledown pamphlet because she wants to release it to discredit Cressida. According to her, as soon as she did that, she was going to go tell Colin unless something else came up that interrupted her. After Eloise tells her this, she stays in her room contemplating for the rest of the day. Portia goes and checks in on her and tells her that she needs to make her husband feel like he's the most important person in the world. Like, girl, what are you doing here in your house? You need to be doting on your husband. You must cater entirely to him and his dreams. And when Penelope asks, well, what about my dreams? Portia's like, dreams? Ladies don't have dreams. Ladies have husbands. And if you're lucky, you'll get what you wish for through him. He's your vessel to get the things that you want. Obviously, we completely disagree with that. I only agree with this in the sense that you're going into a marriage, you're going into a union. If you have a problem, you share that now. You share these issues. You share those problems. So you need to talk about it because you need to face them together. That's maybe my only take on this line. I choose to take that and interpret it in the way that working together with your partner, you can get the things you want working together with your partner. I know that's not how she meant it though, but as a woman in 2024, that's how I'm gonna take it. For Portia, getting the things that you wish for through your husband meant her daughters. And she says this much. And I think this is the most tender moment we've ever seen between her and one of her daughters, where she explains to her, your father sucked, but he gave me you girls. And my greatest wish was for you girls to do better than me. And then she tells her, and you have already done that. And don't take that for granted. I love this moment in the sense that it's the first time you see her reaching out to her daughter. First saying, I'm happy that you're my daughter. I love you and care for you. You're what I've wanted, and you have met my expectations, and I am proud of you. Matter of fact, you have gone above my expectations because you have done better than I did. And that's such an important message to hear as a daughter. And I think that every mother can resonate with that, right? You just want, every parent, you just want your kids to go further than you were able to.
It's giving immigrant parent.
Everything for us.
Everything.
Like, we will always find
when you are a hammer, you're always going to find nails.
Oh, man. So she leaves her with that. And now Penelope is left contemplating on her ring as she holds it over her Whistledown pamphlets that she was reading, symbolizing what she is to gain and what she might lose.
Vamos a ver.
Vamos a ver.
That Sunday, we get to witness the Ton go to Sunday service. So Bridgerton verse doesn't really lean into the religious aspect of life during the Regency era, where everybody has to go to church every fucking Sunday. Everybody, to some extent, even if it's only on Sundays, practices and participates in this faith. This is the first time we're seeing it in Bridgerton. We see it come up in other, Regency era, whether it's contemporaneous to the Regency or written after. And we witness the reading of the banns. So talk to me, dog. What the fuck are banns? My husband just had to tell me, I got bands.
So bands, baby. Bitches be walk because I got bands. Damn. Yeah, so you always hear these mentioned in period films and books. Have the banns been read yet? For me, this is the first time I actually got to see it in a show. So banns are pretty much an announcement of your engagement at the church where you're going to marry, right? It declares your intention to marry, and it gives a chance for anyone to put forward any reason why you shouldn't marry, right? Like, oh, this person's married in another country, or this person is underage, whatever. Mm-hmm. This is tradition, and it's gone on for a million years. It still goes on today. So you read the banns for 3 consecutive Sundays, right? Mm-hmm. 3 consecutive Sundays, you had to read the banns. So you needed to be engaged for at least that amount of time. If that was not possible due to timing, then you needed to apply for a special marriage license, like Daphne and the Duke did in season 1.
Right. If you fucked and you need to hide a pregnancy that's forthcoming, you apply for that special license, baby.
This scene at the church is such a sweet scene where we get to experience Colin and Penelope like looking at each other from across the room, blushing at each other as their own banns are being read. And when the minister asks if there's any just cause why they shouldn't be married, Colin jokingly tugs at his collar, real cute, while Penelope, however, quietly hyperventilates. But if you pay attention, behind Penelope is Lord Show with Miss Kenworthy.
Lord Show, that motherfucker, because he sucked in part 1 of this season. His bitch ass.
If you recall, Lord Cho was out with Colin and the other bro lords the night that he posed the very deep question. Is it not tiring, the necessity imposed on us to remain cavalier about the one thing in life that holds genuine meaning? Look at him now, getting his bands read for a second time. After the congregation files out, Penelope and Colin linger in the aisle. Colin, still feeling a bit insecure about how Penelope might feel or what she's been meaning to tell him, asks her if she will still have him. You're continuing to see that tinge of insecurity within Colin. Like, hey, did you still want to do this? Are you sure? Because I know you've been feeling kind of weird.
And a need for affirmation.
Because guess what? She's been away. They haven't spent much time together at this point.
They haven't been promenading.
Penelope takes the opportunity to confess. Not that she's Whistledown, but that she's loved Colin her whole life since the moment they met.
Which is very sweet.
And he very sweetly vows to spend a lifetime begging for her forgiveness for not having seen it sooner. And they share a little dance in the aisle of the church where he twirls her, where they're going to exchange their vows in 3 weeks. And it's such a cute scene. It's bittersweet because as the viewer, you're sensing, it feels ominous. This is one of the last times you see them happy with each other. This scene is also meant to represent a scene in the book where they are walking together, still as friends, but joking about dancing in the streets at Berkeley Square. So it's supposed to remind you about Colin's playful nature that we honestly don't get to see very much of this season at all.
Mm-hmm. And outside of the church, after this very sweet but foreboding scene, we get Cressida. Cressida rolls up to the church. I assume Cressida has not attended service, right? Because everybody in the town is pissed at her. But she's standing in what I want to call the parking lot of the church. I know that's not what it is. I just want to be like, in the church's parking lot.
Well, technically all the carriages are around the area.
The parking lot of the church.
Of the carriages.
Cressida is standing there in full view of fucking everyone, pretending that it's a secret.
And this big ass pink dress.
She wildin'.
Girl. She does have, though, these pink origami birds in her hair. She's a trapped bird.
Trapped bird. Cressida tries very hard to get Eloise's attention. Dike, quote unquote, without being seen. Bitch, you're seen. You're out here seen. And she has the audacity to ask Eloise for help in writing the next Whistledown column. TBH, if anyone was going to be able to do this and do it convincingly, it would have been Eloise. So did Cressida ask the right person? Yes. Is she gonna do it?
She said, no. Can you help me with this? I know you read. Oh.
Eloise is like, girl, you wrote some really fucked up stuff about me last year, remember? And this is one of those things that I'm like, Eloise, now you know damn well that wasn't Cressida. You know this bitch does not have the brain capacity.
She's poking her. She's just trying to see what she's gonna say.
I know, but I'm like, I don't think that's fair. Like, I thought that was a weird tack to take with Cressida. If anything, it's like, I don't want to be involved in this. I don't want it to come out that I helped you. I don't want my hands anywhere near this. But why are you bringing up what you wrote about me?
She's poking at her. To me, it's wild and a little fucked up because she knows she's not Whistledown. So she knows all she's doing is like stressing her out, right?
Yeah.
And she knows the dilemma that she was dealing with before, that she was trying to talk to her about at the engagement party, right? She didn't stop to think for a minute that Cressida is going through something and might need a bit of support. As somebody who was standing by as her friend for however many weeks.
No, months, because it was in the country that they started hanging out.
You know what she's dealing with at home. You know that she talked to you about taking this route at the engagement party. Hey, I'm gonna try to discover Whistledown so I can take the money and escape. You know she's dealing with her parents. And so you know she's not doing this for attention. With all of that information, she still chooses to treat her like shit.
Yep.
She's not a girl's girl. She is not a good friend.
And that makes me real sad.
We love Eloise, but I have to say that.
I mean, who doesn't love their shitty friends? Because they have
your
qualities
friends that talk
that
shit.
You love.
That call you out all the time on shit, yes.
And then you're like, damn, you kind of suck. And you know what, dude? Growing up is realizing that we've all been Eloise. I fucking been Eloise.
We've all been Eloise once.
That's cost me friendships. And that's a thing that you learn and you mature through, hopefully.
We've been Eloise and we've had Eloises in our lives.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You know, and Cressida, as a defense mechanism, she goes right into accusing Eloise of being jealous. That she's made something of herself, not knowing that Eloise knows for a fact that she's not this thing she's trying to claim.
And this is the second time Eloise has had someone come for her neck about Lady Whistledown.
Oh, you're jealous, huh? No, and she makes a curious comment, which is after a season of feeling nearly invisible because everyone is pairing off, she could understand why somebody would take up writing Lady Whistledown.
The irony is she's invisible on purpose.
She's never wanted to be out in the ton, right? But I think she feels the invisibility now in her home, right? Now she's feeling it in her home because she's seeing her siblings pair off. Her ex-best friend paired off with her brother. He's going to go live outside of the home now. Francesca's moving out because she's with Kilmartin. With this statement, she is starting to maybe understand what Penelope's position was, right? Maybe starting to empathize with that. But at the same time, ignoring Cressida's, who's very much parallels the same sentiment. But again, Eloise can't. She has a hard time seeing past her own perspective. Actually displaying some jealousy are the Featherington sisters as they see their mom, literally doting on Penelope and Colin. She's like, oh my God, they make the cutest couple.
The way
Aren't they so
didn't
sweet?
Need to be a plot point. I didn't need any
the jealousy
time
from the sisters.
I didn't need any time spent on this.
Girl, it's giving Brandy Cinderella.
Oh.
With the outfits and everything.
Brandy Cinderella meets the Hunger Games. Like, what are we doing? I did not need any of this. They got pregnant. They fucked in part 1. Amazing. They're going to have babies. Fantastic. I don't need to see them again.
They're jealous because now all the attention they were getting from their mother from this pregnancy plot, now Penelope's getting married to a Bridgerton and they're seeing that attention shift to Penelope and they're like, hello, what about me? I'm pregnant.
I'm so
hey,
tired.
Mom, remember how you wanted me to be pregnant? I'm pregnant now. This jealousy plot from the sisters continues to play a bit on that Eros and Psyche narrative, as Psyche had very jealous sisters, right? And on the Bridgerton side, we have Francesca, who looks on to Penelope and Colin and notices how warmly they are greeted by her mother, right? She looks on to them, maybe wishing she and John can be openly engaged, which they're not yet, and wanting to share in that kind of celebratory joy and that warmth from everyone, which is kind of weird because we know Francesca as not really liking attention. But Violet hasn't spoken to the queen yet, so they can't be openly engaged yet.
That night, Penelope makes up her mind and puts all of her writing supplies under her floorboards in her Featherington home and tosses her Whistledown columns into the fire one by one. Yikes, baby. The direct cut after this is Colin excitedly writing at his desk. This is a visual representation of the wife's dreams are her husband's dreams, right?
Yes, exactly. Ladies don't have dreams, they have husbands.
Get rid of your ambition and pour yourself into your husband's work. It also portrays something that modern women contend with when they're expected to sacrifice work for their domestic lives.
100%.
No one says a working father. They're working mothers and just fathers, because fathers are expected to work.
You're already working. That's your job, is to work.
The guy gives 100% at work so then he can go home and be a shitty husband and a shitty father. And then mom gives 50% at work and 50% at home so she can be bad at everything. That's what society would have you think about working mothers.
Seeing that scene felt like a little bit of a stab in the heart because I was like, wow. You know, and I love the change we're seeing where that dynamic is starting to even out. You're still judged by it today.
It's bullshit.
In this case, however, though, I will say it's a little unfair in that what makes her unable to carry on more than anything else is her secrecy and deceit, as opposed to not being able to. So if she were to fucking open up,
Paola, that would take away all the conflict.
Resolving this,
then we would only have 11 plot lines to focus on instead of 12. The mind reels.
Hello.
The next day, we see Penelope preparing for her wedding. She is helping Portia. They're basking in their excitement. They're discussing wedding plans and decor. They want to be extravagant. They want to use up that Bridgerton money.
Money, money, money.
Money! She stops by Madame Delacroix's atelier to pick up fabric swatches for her wedding dress.
Oh, that is a fancy word.
Atelier!
Atelier.
Damn, is that French, my little croissant? She goes to the atelier. Madame Delacroix congratulates Penelope on her engagement and proceeds to ask her what she will do to continue publishing her Lady Whistledown column. And as working women and a fellow working woman, she cannot help but be disappointed when she realizes that Penelope plans to give it up. And I want to call one thing out here that Ryan and I talked about, and you and I talked about as we watched it. Madame Delacroix, anytime she interacts with Penelope, sheds her fake French accent. Because we know she's just an English girl from the bad part of town, faking being French for the purposes of
elevating her status.
Exactly. After Penelope tells her, well, I'm actually giving up Lady Whistledown after I get married, she immediately puts the French voice back on.
Like, oh, back to work.
Yeah, like, well, back on my bullshit, because we're not doing real anymore. We're just doing fake.
Oh, so we gonna lie. Okay. Let me get back to work and assist you as your modiste.
Yeah.
Since you're gonna give this up and we're no longer gonna be business partners also, right?
Yeah.
There's also that.
The financial component for sure. Madame Delacroix shares, in her French accent now, that her favorite part of dressmaking is seeing the satisfaction on her clients' faces when she creates the perfect dress for them. And she could never imagine giving that up. Think about the joy Penelope feels anytime someone is reading Whistledown in front of her. Like, the way she gets, how excited she gets. Like, whenever it's Albion, Mr. Finch.
I love how she uses flowers as puns.
And Penelope's like tossing her hair in the background, right? She is smart. Like, okay, girl. After this scene at the Modiste, we cut over to who, baby? Fake ass Lady Whistledown, also known as Cressida motherfucking Cowper. She is trying to write her own column while sitting at a child's desk in her old nursery, probably letting you know the last time she tried to write something was when she was a child. Girl, they are not cultivating the right skills in you, okay? Cressida could barely get past the greeting. First of all, she didn't even get that right. Dearest gentle reader. Nope. Cressida's like, hi, readers. I'm Lady Whistledown.
Hi, guys.
Welcome back to my channel.
Welcome back to my channel. Have you seen the meme going around that's like, R.I.P. Cressida, you would have loved ChatGPT?
Absolutely. The same set of memes that's like, R.I.P. Benedict, you would have loved Challengers 2024.
Ooh,
I've seen that, by the way. I haven't talked to you about that, but I've seen it.
I know. We got to talk about it.
Lady Cowper decides to start helping her after Lord Cowper has decided to withdraw Cressida's dowry. Now Lady Cowper is like, all right, we're in damage control mode. Your father doesn't want to give you a dowry anymore. Why? He's a piece of shit. But if we get you these 5,000 pounds by convincing the queen that you're Lady Whistledown, maybe you can lure a husband from the continent. Or the countryside. And I'm like, Mr. Darcy, he ain't gonna marry you. It's too ding-dang smart.
Not that country.
Not that country. Derbyshire? The miserable half? Nope.
Not the miserable half.
The miserable half. Now we go over to Lady Tilly Arnold's place. Famously brassy wig, where she's arranged a gathering so Benedict can meet her quote-unquote dear friend, Paul Suarez.
I gasped when I heard a Hispanic last name. I was like, Suarez?
They got those there?
A first for Bridgerton so far.
Paul is a tall, dark-haired, light-eyed, handsome gentleman, if that's doing it for you, who starts giving off just incredible vibes immediately. The man is hungry, and it's not for food. And something that does make me sad is when Paul asked Benedict if he had any creative pursuits, like writing, painting, drawing, right? You're the second son. What the fuck are you up to? What are you doing?
What are you doing?
Because you're not Viscounting. You got a brother for that. Benedict is like, I don't have any creative pursuits.
I like to dance, he says. I dance sometimes. It actually reminded me. I was like, oh, wait, that's right. We haven't seen him paint or draw the whole season. Like, he really gave it up. It wasn't just, I'm going to stop going to the Royal Academy. He legit just stopped. He was pretty much like, well, I got Tilly now, I guess. Tilly's his new distraction. That's his new hyperfixation, I guess I would say. And I didn't realize until that point, we indeed did not see him do any of the things he likes this season, other than
what we're about to talk about. He's just been chilling with Lady Tilly. That's really been his whole vibe this season. And at one point, Mr. Suarez says, the wine has made you rather charming, as they share a prolonged look as they smoke on the balcony on the outside of Lady Tilly's home.
Benny is about to get Benedict down. I'm just saying.
Ah! That was very good. I'm just really upset about it.
Not yet, though. First, he has to go think about it.
Yeah, he does. He does have to take a moment. He has to take a time out. He's got to run it over, do a game plan, try to find protection. Just kidding. They don't do that back then. He doesn't get Benedict down because as he walks back into Lady Tilly's home, he catches Lady Tilly and Paul, Mr. Paul Suarez, embraced in a passionate kiss. They break apart. He's like, what? What's up? Also, methinks he's being like a touch too naive for a man that used to regularly go to art orgies.
Exactly.
I'm like, boy, you
Excuse
know
me,
what the
sir?
fuck is up.
You've been here. You've been here.
We've been out here. What are you doing? They break apart and they ask him to join them upstairs. One of the memes I've seen that I fucking love is, we noticed you from across the bar and we really love your vibe. He freaks out. He's like, I gotta go. I gotta be somewhere, like anywhere else. Anywhere that's not here. Anywhere that's not fucking both of you. I'm good. I'm leaving. And leaves Mr. Paul and Lady Tilly very, very disappointed.
They were sad.
They were sad.
Aw, it's just gonna have to be us two tonight.
We won't have fun. I'm sure you will. But the rest of the Ton that evening is trying to have fun elsewhere. Where are they trying to have fun? The Mondrich Ball. So the Mondriches in the background of this have been planning their very first ball where they host the Ton in their fancy new home.
After Will Mondrich sold his bar, unfortunately.
Again, going out with a whimper, not a bang.
I was a little frustrated with seeing him sell his bar. I really hope that he would have been able to keep it and maybe have somebody else manage it, right? Like maybe just do it in the background.
He worked so hard for it.
But also, I feel like last season we saw Jack Featherington out here able to run his Ruby Mines investment, quote unquote. To me, that's almost like running a business. It's under a different name. It comes off differently when you explain it. Oh, I'm investing. And that was fine. Nobody batted an eye at that. But Will, who has built a business and is working, can't keep it because this society looks down on working men. So I'm kind of hoping that maybe comes back around in season 4, where he maybe finds a different way to exercise that need for him, the need to be able to manage something, take care of something, build something, right? Whether it's through investing or through helping somebody else.
We'll see what they do with them. I hope they keep building the Mondriches. I feel like they had a ton of wasted opportunities with them in season 3. I'm hoping it's just building blocks. They're just setting foundation for season 4, where they become maybe more relevant in the story.
They're the only other family outside of the Bridgertons who's like a functioning family.
Yes.
Who's like a happy and functioning family. So I would love to see them continue to build that relationship and that example. They are an important perspective to have as people who are new to this world and who still have that working class perspective. I think bring relatability. They're not as frivolous as everyone else. This experience is still new, kind of how it is for the viewer. I find their perspective still important to the show. They just need to write them in better plot points. They can't let them fizzle. So let's see how they do that.
They bummed me out this season.
Because this season, it almost felt frustrating where you're like, all right, well, how important do they feel to the plot? They didn't feel that important to the plot. And that was disappointing.
So how are we driving the plot? By including the Mondriches, they're throwing a ball. Lady Danbury has kind of taken them under her wing. Alice and Will have had experience entertaining. Obviously, they owned a bar. And so they decide, like, all right, fuck it. They've never had to host the queen. The stakes are a little bit higher, but they can do it. I trust them. When the queen arrives, because she's wildin', she pronounces that the party is lackluster at best until a footman turns the crank on this, like, big butt plug shaped structure. In the middle of the floor.
Contraption?
Anyway, and it unfolds.
Goodness me.
This butt plug opens like a flower in the middle of the dance floor, showcasing giant paper flowers coming out of every plane of the interior of this structure. It's like stunning.
It looks like those greeting cards that you open and have like...
Boop. It looks like my favorite book from when I was growing up, which was a pop-up book about sea creatures.
Not a pop-up book.
It looks like a pop-up book. Parentheses positive. So this brings Queen Charlotte's rating from a harsh 2.5 to a smooth 4. 4 stars out of 5. Take it easy for a little while. Come and stay with us.
Yes. The pop-up book got her.
She was like, I had those in my childhood. I like them too. Now that the queen is present, Francesca starts to press Violet to talk to her. Francesca, you're starting to annoy me, girl. And Violet lets it slip that she's afraid of her lack of enthusiasm. This is contrived too. If anybody knows how to act, put on a face and bullshit, it's fucking Violet Bridgerton. And you're telling me that she doesn't trust herself to go in front of the queen and be like, isn't this amazing, their the relationship?
I mean, I've seen her being nervous about visiting the queen. Like, she had to visit the queen in season 1.
Yes.
When Daphne and the Duke were kind of courting, right? The queen invited her. She's nervous around the queen because she is a big presence. So I get that. This isn't season 1 Violet or even season 2 Violet. The Bridgertons have disappointed a queen 3 times in a row at this point.
How are they still allowed out?
So she's like, I do not want to be the one to talk to her about this. So Violet tells her, like, because of the lack of enthusiasm, because of Francesca's lack of enthusiasm about her own match.
Bueno.
That's what her worry is. I think Francesca's like, you know, not every love story has to be dramatic. And she tells her, I love John. I love John because it's easy to love John. I love him because of that, not because it's dramatic and I have to fight for this. I love him because it's easy. She says she's disappointed in the lack of support that she feels from Violet and leaves her standing there in the middle of the ballroom.
Violet leaves the ballroom in tears. And when Marcus, Mr. Marcus Anderson, tries to follow her, Lady Danbury stops him and yells at him in this like foyer area outside the ballroom that it is not his place to go after her friend. She will check on her instead. So Lady Danbury, like the rest of us, has been clocking that Lord Anderson and Lady Bridgerton are forming a little bit of an attachment to each other, whether that's a friendship, more than a friendship, etc. However, this other storyline of Lady Danbury beefing with her brother, another one I would have hit with a smooth red pen. Get it the fuck out of here. How is it serving the plot? You're creating a touch of depth, but doing it in such a hasty way with so little buildup and so little come down, and the climax is so that it's like, what are we doing? Why are we bringing this into our elder age? I feel like that is not Lady Danbury's style.
Yeah, and then when you find out what it is, like,
I'm deeply underwhelmed. It's like you were mad at like a 10-year-old child. Like,
he was 10. So this happened and he was 10, meaning he had no control.
And
meaning
had no idea what the fuck was happening.
I understand that in the sense that her experience was so traumatic.
Yeah.
Right? If you go back to Queen Charlotte, her experience was so traumatic to the point where she quite literally endured sexual assault in her marriage. The age difference and everything.
And how disgusting her husband was.
That was such a traumatic experience for her. Anything that helped that along, anything that drove that situation for her, she hates. That's where that disdain for her brother comes from, because to her, he outed her in trying to escape. I could have escaped if you didn't say anything. Even though he was only 10 years old, he didn't know any better.
Yeah.
But just the trauma emphasizes that for her.
Yeah, it's just the being mad at a child. And even Lord Anderson is like, girl, you would have been caught anyway. Nobody was going to control that. And she makes offhanded comments a little bit later on in the season about how he was their father's favorite. And it's like, because he was a boy.
He was the boy.
And that's a thing that's also not his fault.
Right. Also not his fault.
Yeah.
All the issues with the trauma they had with their father, which was apparently very abusive.
Yeah.
You know, she kind of pushes onto him because she doesn't have her father to blame. He's not there. Who's there? It's her brother. The something that she says in this scene, pretty much like while he's trying to go after Violet, it's like, must you take everything away from me? Because she blames him for taking her independence, taking her place in the family, right? Because as a son.
And as all eldest daughters know, you are the father of your family.
Happy
Father's Day to all eldest daughters. You are the patriarch.
Thank you. Thank you. Now he's going after her friend and she's like, what the fuck? I can't have this for myself either. Like, I changed my life. Years were my life. I'm far away from you. And now you're here taking this from me too. And she gets so mad. Something that I found so endearing is he calls her by her given name, Soma.
Yeah.
And this triggered her in a way. How dare you fucking call me by my given name? That this woman went into her West African accent and is pretty much like, you can't write this wrong. There's nothing you can do to make this okay.
And she pushes after this man to go after Violet, her friend, not his, mine, not yours. Back at the ball, classical rendition of Confident by Demi Lovato plays as Cressida Cowper and her mother stroll in. People start to whisper because they're like, what the fuck are these bitches doing here?
It's Lady Whistledown.
Portia sniffs a scandal writer for a daughter. Can you imagine? Bitch, I can.
Ooh, we can. Can you imagine, Portia?
You better try. And Cressida has this red dress on. Wow, Effie Trinket looks amazing at the Met Gala.
It's her best dress, though.
It is.
This is her best dress in the whole season.
Wrap up my Christmas gifts. You know what I mean? She looks amazing.
With this dress, we continue with the avian references because this giant bow that's on her dress looks like wings. I think it's a dope ass dress, and it continues to bring in this avian thread that they've been pulling since the beginning. It looks stunning on her. It's like a FU dress, right? And I found it interesting that Cressida's FU dress is this bright red dress, and Penelope's FU dress at the beginning of the season was this dark teal green. Red and green being colors that are directly opposite each other on the color wheel.
Ooh.
Also considered complementary colors. So, you know, the parallels the stories keep putting between Cressida and Penelope, I enjoy those parallels for them.
Penelope and Colin try to ignore the spectacle of the Cowper ladies walking in and try to continue dancing. Penelope starts to stumble, accidentally steps on his foot. Colin tells Penelope about editing his travel diary into a manuscript. So fun. And she asks if she can edit for him. In the book's plot, this request makes more sense because by this point, he already knows that she's Whistledown. And he keeps that secret for her for quite a while. He does recall that she writes the best letters. So yeah, you know, letter writing, editing a manuscript, those are the same. You should totally edit mine. He doesn't reject her offer, but says he wants to try it on his own first. He wants to prove to himself he can do it and that he is worthy of her. Wow, look at that. Love that. Colin looks up at Cressida, and she is now talking to the queen. Cressida offers the queen a gift as servants start passing around her quote-unquote proof in the form of a short Whistledown mini installment, a little Sysflix hit clips of a Whistledown, promising a full issue soon to come. Everyone is whipped into a frenzy by this because as much as they had kind of accepted that she announced she was Whistledown, so she must be, there's still kind of this whole Cressida's a dumbass. Like, how is she, right? Why would she be this like clever, cool person? And she hasn't released an issue. So now we feel like it's actually not her. They release a convincing enough mini-sode of Lady Whistledown that everyone's like, oh shit, it's really her. Penelope and Eloise look at each other like they're going to fucking throw up when they read the sheet's closing line. Yours truly, Lady Whistledown, or forever now Cressida Cowper. Yikes.
Jesus.
Bitch barely knows how to write.
Because this little snippet sounds so much like the first Lady Whistledown sheet.
Yes.
They literally pulled that first Lady Whistledown sheet and was like, okay, how did she write this? Okay. And they changed like one or two words.
Smart.
It convinced the ton. It convinced the queen. Girl.
Penelope pulls Eloise out of the ballroom, and in private, Eloise blames herself for befriending Cressida and then underestimating her. Bitch, don't blame yourself for befriending her and underestimating her. Blame yourself for befriending her and being a piece of shit. Literally.
Being a bad friend. Yes.
If Cressida had like an ounce of connection with other people that felt genuine and unconditional, not based on her success getting married, not based on her like beauty or lack thereof or kindness to other people or lack thereof, one unconditional loving relationship for Cressida, because she wasn't getting that from her parents and she didn't have any fucking friends. I'm not saying it would have healed her. I'm just saying that this comes up later in a future conversation we see Cressida have, but knowing that you have someone who's constantly in your corner has a huge effect on how you carry yourself in your life.
And she tried.
Yeah.
She tried reaching out to Eloise. She tried telling Eloise about her problems. She tried telling her, listen, I'm thinking about doing this. What do you think? And she was ignored.
Yeah.
Time and time again.
Yeah.
To the point where she just thought she would take matters into her own hands, didn't think about the consequences, didn't fully register what it is exactly that she was going to do. And now she's in este maldito problema. And now she just has to run with it because she's also scared
stuck
of the queen. She's stuck.
The writers of this season, they played us with this like Cressida redemption arc, because I think you could have had the same major plot points. Cressida tries to be Lady Whistledown, constructed differently in a way that was like a little bit more believable that this is how she would end up. Maybe not by her being friends with Eloise. Maybe we just focus on her a little bit more independently as she starts to kind of lose it because her parents are like continuing to like push different marriages on her and stuff. Maybe we see that. Maybe it doesn't have to be her being friends with Eloise. Her friendship with Eloise was fucking nothing. It was keeping the seat warm for Penelope.
I see what you mean. Like, why do the friendship? You could have observed this on her own.
The way
right,
we
on
observe
the, back end
the
on her
Mondrichens, the way we observe people that are not related to the Bridgertons, we could have done that just with Cressida.
The one thing that it did do for Eloise, because I don't think it provided any growth for Eloise.
No, it made her worse.
The one thing that it did do for Eloise was understand Penelope's point of view and place herself where Penelope was last season, where she's making dumb choices. Now in this scene where her and Penelope read this, they run into a room. She's hyperventilating like, I fucked this up. I convinced you to let her take her name. I became close to her, brought her close to my family. I fucked this up.
Yeah.
And so putting her in that situation, it's what helps her understand first what maybe Penelope has been went through last season, but also makes a situation where now Penelope has to help her by writing as Whistledown again. Now Penelope seeing how much Eloise is affected by this. And she's like, I can help you fix this. Let me write one more issue. It will discredit her. And this is where we get the line. It's not just gossip.
It's power.
Right? Because even as Eloise is breaking down, she's like, oh my God, we created a monster. First of all, when I heard her say this shit, I'm like, we French now? We sounds like a lot of people, Eloise. Now she has as much power as the queen because she's Lady Whistledown that carries so much influence in the ton. A couple hours ago, earlier in the day, when she was trying to sell it to Penelope that it didn't matter. Oh, it's just gossip. Oh, now it's power, bitch. Now you see that it's power.
Yep.
And now you see the importance that Penelope was placing on this.
This season veers between such strong writing and connection and then really weak character development.
Yeah, there was very little character development here.
It does big zigzags between
big
these
story,
points.
Little character development.
Exactly. Yeah. These points where they're so satisfying of like, oh, big moment. And then these characters that are like, and then I left and I went somewhere else. And you're like, what happened to you? Like, why are you better? Are you worse? Like, Eloise is essentially a fucking villain, low-key, by the end of this fucking season. And that's hard for me to say. I fuck with her.
A villain, per se, but definitely you don't feel much sympathy for her.
Penelope now knows, okay, I have the chance to publish something in real Whistledown language that will discredit Cressida. She can't imitate me, right? Often imitated, never replicated.
Never replicated.
Penelope's like, I'm gonna spit some fire onto these fucking pamphlets. Guess who's not gonna be able to do that? I'm gonna fuck her shit up. Nobody's gonna believe it's Cressida. Duh. She hastily scribbles away her next Lady Whistledown pamphlet in her carriage on the way to who you presume to be the publisher in the bad part of town.
This must be the smoothest carriage ride ever.
What handwriting?
Because she's got the ink, the little ink thingy, dipping her quill. That shit didn't spill. It was bound to spill.
You would be holding that the way you hold a nail polish, like between your fingers as you're doing your nails.
We're going to suspend our disbelief and believe this was a smooth carriage ride.
Oh, yeah.
Not on cobblestone streets.
There's never been a rock in London.
The road has just been paved.
It's
a smooth
paved.
drive.
So she's scribbling away in the carriage. Again, girl, and I know you're not stopping at red lights to finish up that pamphlet, but okay.
Yeah.
So she dons her hooded cloak, as we've seen her do before. She goes to the printers. It's the same boss print man that was Theo Sharp's boss last season. So we're seeing a couple of
that's her guy.
These side characters again, which is fun. And she comes in, puts on her little Irish accent, and she's like, all right, my man, I'm gonna need you to print this fucking ASAP. Deliver the shit in the morning. You know how it is. I'm gonna give you a big cut, and I'll give you a discount. Like, hook me up. And the guy's like, anything for Lady Whistledown. Because, of course, you have to blow up her entire fucking government spot. Why? How else would we drive the plot if we don't say every single thing right now? Verbatim, anything for Lady Whistledown.
Lady Whistledown?
Did you hear me?
Did you hear me?
And Penelope fucking turns around triumphant because she's like, I'm going to pull one over.
She got this. She got there on time. It's going to get published when I needed to get published before Cressida's, or at least at the same time. It's going to discredit her. Okay, did it. She turns around, and who's walking behind her? It's fucking Colin. And goes, you're Lady Whistledown?
And that's the end of episode
and it cuts
6
to black. So how are you if you're watching this at 1:30 in the morning for the first time?
Okay.
Supposed to just go to sleep. You can't. You have to you need to see what happens. You're going to see the next episode. Holy shit. Okay, now he does kind of find out this way in the book. It's definitely before they're engaged. And it's in a similar way where he's in his own carriage at some point and he sees her on the street getting into a paid cab. And when he sees her do that, he's like, why is she riding in her Featherington carriage? He decides to follows it into like a very not nice part of town where she drops off her sheet. On her way back from dropping off her sheet, he stops her and is like, oh, hi, fancy seeing you here. What was that you just dropped off? He picks it up, reads it, and that's how he finds out that she's Lady Whistledown. He's like, get in the carriage. We're going home. I'm taking you home. They have a big blowout argument. Cressida at this point has already come out as Lady Whistledown in the book. So when they're arguing in the carriage, he's like, why wouldn't you just let Cressida take the credit? All of this and that. And she goes into like, this is my life's work and blah, 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 blah. And this is what leads to the carriage scene and proposal and all of that. So the dynamic is completely different in the book than they've portrayed it now in the show.
And I will say the Lady Whistledown reveal, I much prefer it in the book. The reveal between Penelope and Colin, you lose a lot of this fucking chaos. You lose a lot of this tension and this back and forth. And I think it benefits the story because then it can leave the tension where it belongs, which is between Lady Whistledown and the Ton.
Or the Queen in this sense, not between Penelope and Colin. It becomes more of like him trying to reconcile kind of how he feels about her accomplishments and his lack of accomplishments. But oh my God, at the end of this episode, you're like, fuck. I'm a little pissed at Eloise for convincing her to not tell him.
It's very Kate telling Anthony not to marry Edwina and then going the next day and telling him to marry Edwina.
Exactly. Anytime I think about it, anytime I've rewatched it, I'm always like, I wish they would have done it earlier. It just needed to be sooner. It needed to be sooner.
We're wasting time. We're burning daylight over here. Can you guys fucking make up so that we can all sit here in the war room and make plans? Like, come on. God.
Anywho, that's a conversation for our coverage of episode 7 and 8,
swoop, swoop.
Which is coming soon.
Not soon enough, we know, but soon.
Not soon enough.
We are but two ladies, but two dumb idiots. One dumb idiot and my older sister.
Do you have a favorite part of the last 2 episodes we just talked about, 5 and 6?
You know what? The part where they're in the church reading the banns.
Oh, that was such a cute scene.
Because you get a glimpse of like actual real Colin when he's like, ooh, like pulling it. Like Ryan and I do that to Colin. Each other all the time. Like, yeah, that felt very like sweet and relatable to me. How about you?
All right, I have 2.
Okay.
And they follow each other. So when Colin putting Portia in her place was one of my favorite scenes. Iconic. It made
the
me
way
emotional.
He did it without even thinking.
And then the mirror scene.
Of course. Of course.
Before you put me in horny jail, okay? Listen, I'm a fan of the ground and pound. But to me, it was the affirmations.
What?
In front of the mirror. That was melt. Like, such a beautiful scene. I mean, and then of course, you know, we got the girlies out. We see a little cute booty, you know, all of that. Love it. Those are my 2 favorite scenes.
Heard. Valid.
And then I think then the church. That would be my number 3.
All right, guys. We have so many opinions on this season of Bridgerton. As you can all fucking tell, part 2 is hitting especially differently from part 1. And sometimes Paola and I have the same thoughts. Sometimes our thoughts vary widely.
Love talking about it, though.
We love talking about it. You're always going to have a hater and you're always going to have a lover when you're here at Sisflix.
Interchangeably sometimes.
Interchangeably. Sometimes on the same side, sometimes on opposite sides. You're always going to have it. So please stay with us as we wrap up what feels, I mean, this has felt like a Herculean undertaking. Season 3.
The Odyssey. Bridgerton Odyssey.
The Bridgerton Odyssey. Season 3, part 2 of Bridgerton. As we wrap up episodes 7 and 8, stay with us. Please. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed our conversation so far and all of its unhinged glory. If you like what you heard and you want to hear more, please
leave a review anywhere you get your podcasts. Come find us on Instagram at sisflixpodcast or shoot us an email at sisflixpodcast@gmail.com and tell us what you think.
Oh, yeah.
How are you feeling? Hit us up. We love to talk about this.
Mm-hmm.
Or do you have an idea for a movie or show for us to cover in the future? Let us know. We would love to add to our list for next season. Thank you for listening.